The silence of a warm sunny day is broken by someone's loud, indignant cry. This is Mao Xiao, who has just been informed of the broken engagement. The unpleasant news was brought to him by Lin Bei, a handsome young man of 20. He was a good, upstanding guy from the 21st century. But before he could put his good ambitions into action, he was inexplicably transported to another world, the Juzhou continent. There, he became the senior disciple of the Qingyun school's single-minded peak, whose leader is the immortal fairy Bi Yun. In this school, where knowledge flowed freely like water from a mountain spring, he met Du Gu Yu. There he also met Nalan Qingyun's younger sister. Contrary to his wishes, the system forces this guy to become a villain. After learning this, Lin Bei decides to adjust his character to become a good person without dying in the alien world. However, to the boy's horror, the evil system did not allow him to do this. And then the hero decides to become a supervillain for the sake of his own survival. That's why he's now once again improving his villainy skills, diligently humiliating Mao Xiao. "Do you really think we came here to negotiate with you?" he says with a chuckle to the enraged guy. Ignoring Mao Xiao's condition, the villain continues to say that the guy is like a ghost, because 3 years have already passed, and he is still at the 3rd level of qi cultivation and is not making any progress at all. And the younger sister, who Mao Xiao was engaged to, has great potential to become a great empress and soar above the 9 heavens. Therefore, such a scumbag as her failed fiancé is completely unworthy of her. The game system informs Lin Bei that he has successfully played the role of the villain, so he was awarded 1,000 points. Now the guy understands that humiliating those chosen by heaven is the surest way to improve his own skills. All his life he strove to become a good person, but he did not manage to achieve this in his home world. And now he is the elder brother of Lingxi Peak in Qingyun sect. And to his great regret, here he has to be a real villain. The young hero lifted his younger sister's skirt, and the older one stole his older sister's stockings. He bullied his students, older brothers and sisters, intimidating everyone around him. He would really like to change the rules of the system, because it is obvious that he himself will become just another step for those chosen by heaven, and sooner or later, he will simply die. But there is a chance that if the hero completes the system's villainous tasks, he will be able to turn the situation around. Lin Bei, as an apology for the broken engagement, gives Mao Xiao a Jian pill that can help a cultivator condense his nascent soul. Of course, with your trash abilities, you probably won't need the pill, but the Jiu family might find it useful. He laughs at the guy. With the Jian pill, this family may have a nascent soul expert. Unable to bear such humiliation, Mao Xiao slammed his fist on the table. The boy believes that even if he is useless now, nevertheless, at the age of 16, he has already reached the stage of creating a foundation. "And what level were you at that age?" Mao shouts furiously at Lin Bei. He grins maliciously in response and turns away, reproaching the guy for his arrogance. He approaches his sister and asks her to tell him at what age she reached the same stage of foundation building. The girl obediently begins to tell that 13 years ago, the fairy Bi Yun took her as a student and made her a younger sister. Then she was only 5 years old, and her older brother was 8. 5 years later, Lin reached the foundation stage at the age of 13, and she herself, with the help of her brother, reached the same stage at 15. What he heard leaves Mao in a state of shock and disappointment. His self-confidence takes a huge hit. The guy's heart is on the verge of breaking, and his chi of luck drops by a whole 500 points. For the achieved result, the joyful Lin receives 100 points of luck and a whole 1,000 points of villainy. Encouraged by his success, he decides to add some more fuel to the fire. He cruelly tells the depressed Mao that if he were in his place, he would have long since lost the face to live in this world. As for his engagement to his younger sister, he himself is much more worthy of becoming the girl's husband, and not at all a loser like Mao Xiao. Mao watches in rage as the man he hates embraces Nalan Qingyun, and concludes that the initiator of the breakup was his fiancée, who fell in love with Lin Bei. "You two bastards, go to hell!" The guy can't take it anymore, jumping up and rushing into the attack. But Nalan Qingyun easily stops him with a humiliating kick right to his face. Mao, not expecting such resistance, falls to the floor, clutching his bruised face. "My older brother is not someone to be trifled with," says Nalan. Mao does not agree with the girl. He is disgusted by the fact that this man is hiding behind a woman's skirt. Lin, however, believes that there is no need for him to attack himself, since Nalan Qingyun is protecting him. But if he himself, instead of his younger sister, had kicked her with all his might, Mao would already be dead. These words bring the humiliated guy to the boiling point. He jumps to his feet and promises everyone in the hall that in 3 years, he will definitely come to the Qingyun sect and demand retribution from both of them. 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West. Lin rolls her eyes at this promise. While asking him not to misbehave, he nevertheless delivers a light kick to Mao's face. The guy again can't stay on his feet and humiliatingly falls to the floor. Lin gets 1,000 points of villainy and 50 points of luck for this, while Mao Xiao, on the contrary, loses 250 chi of luck. Zheng Xiao tries to intervene to protect his family's disciple, but is stopped by another elder. The white-haired Ouyang reminds the man of the consequences that would result if he were to be hostile to the Qingyun sect. Therefore, Zhang can only close his eyes, agreeing that he is right. Chosen daughter. Gu Yue approaches Mao, worried about his well-being. She showed up to help him. Their chi of luck intertwined and Mao got plus 200 points. Lin realizes that suppressing this guy's chi of luck will not be so easy now. To do this, he will have to break his connection with his chosen daughter. With a chuckle, he notes out loud that Mao is only capable of hiding behind women's backs. Mao Xiao is so shocked by these words that he can't even respond with anything other than an indignant cry. Lin continues to say that Mao recently refused to call off his engagement to Nalan Qingyun, and now he is already embracing another woman. The villain believes that Mao has no face or shame, since he is ready to welcome any woman who throws herself into his arms. What a pity it's a flower inserted into cow shit, he says, wiping away non-existent tears with a handkerchief. Gu Ye holds Mao's hand, urging him not to fall for other people's tricks. Don't think you're a genius. In my eyes, your talent is only average, the girl shouts, pointing her finger at Lin. But this backfires, and Mao Xiao, who reached the foundation stage much later than Lin, becomes even more upset. His self-esteem plummets, and his luck drops by 100 points at once. If the system hadn't told Lin that Gu Yue was the chosen daughter, he would have definitely thought that she was on his side. He folds his hands and bows slightly, acknowledging the girl's rightness and expressing the hope that she will be able to guide him. Worriedly, Gu Yue turns to Mao and asks if he is okay, to which the guy explodes and roughly pushes her away, shouting to leave him alone. Lin deftly catches the girl by the shoulders, preventing her from falling. Mao runs out of the room and she shouts after him in frustration. Breaking free from Lin's embrace, the girl quickly runs after Mao Xiao. At this point, the ugly scene ends and everyone leaves the hall. The day gave way to night, and the bright moon, rising high, filled everything around with its quiet, silvery glow. After receiving 3,000 villain points, the system finally told Mao Xiao's next chance to rise today. Lin Bei can't let this happen, so he sneaks into the Xiao family's back mountain. Mao tirelessly dives into the depths of Yin Yue Lake, trying to get one important thing from there, but all to no avail. So he contacts Deng Lao to discuss his unsuccessful search. The guy complains to him that there is nothing special at the bottom of this lake, just ordinary stones. Meanwhile, somewhere in the forest nearby, a satisfied Lin stands. He successfully snatched the lucky opportunity of the Four Directions Spirit Box from Mao, for which the system awarded him 400 luck points and 20,000 villain points. The Four Directions Spirit Box is an artifact that came from the Immortal Realm to the Nine Dynasties continent. It can extract the essence of all spiritual objects placed inside and condense them into origin stones. While examining the unusual artifact, the guy doesn't notice movement behind his back. Lin Bei, a surprised Gu Yue calls him. The guy jumps up in fright and does a somersault in the air. The girl asks again what he is doing here on the back mountain of the Xiao family, to which Lin replies with a smile that he couldn't sleep today after their morning meeting. Gu Yue's graceful figure lingered in his mind and did not give him peace, so he unconsciously ended up here. Gu Yue doesn't buy into his chatter, immediately realizing that this man is here to harm Brother Mao. So she no longer wastes time talking, but immediately tries to attack. Lin easily dodges her blow. He looks at the confused Gu Yue with a sly smile. While the girl has not yet had time to come to her senses, he reaches out and carefully grabs her wrist. In one fluid movement, Lin pulls the girl towards him. "If you ask me how deep my love for you is, the moon represents my heart," he says to her, looking into her eyes and holding the stem of a red rose between his teeth. For teasing his chosen daughter, the system generously awards him 1,000 villainy points. Suddenly, Lin hears a loud voice behind him demanding that he let the girl go. He turns around and sees the girl's guardian, named Gu Shu, standing in front of him. Lin feels a terrifying pressure and can't even move. The man in front of him is so powerful. The system offers him help, but he will have to spend as much as 10,000 villainy points to get the method of salvation. Out of desperation, Lin agrees, and all the information about Gu Yue and the rescue plan appear before his eyes. At this time, Gu Shu asks the girl what he should do with the person who offended her. The girl exhales heavily and makes a difficult decision. She orders Lin to be killed to prevent him from influencing her beloved brother Mao. After receiving his mistress's permission, Gushu begins to attack. Obeying his power, the fiery hand begins to strangle Lin Bei. But the guy still manages to croak out inaudibly that he has something for Lady Yue. But the girl has no intention of listening to him. Therefore, Gushu clenched his palm, increasing the strength of the strangulation. The seed of gluttony water has appeared in your body. Lin screams with all his might. The hand strangling him disappears in that same second. Lin continues to say that the seed of the water of gluttony is one of the 10 great magical waters, and right now it is in Madame Yue's dantian. If she doesn't believe it, she can ask Gushu to take a look and confirm. Yu looks at the man thoughtfully and still agrees. After receiving permission, Gushu begins his inspection. Damn it, this is truly the seed of gluttony. He opens his eyes in disbelief and wonders who has the audacity to use the mistress as a cauldron. Lin replies with a grin that he knows the identity of this man. Perched on the edge of the roof with his mistress and Lin, Gushu uses his secret technique to observe Mao, whom they suspect. The man is in the stage of transformation, so it is impossible to detect him, being only in the stage of inception. Therefore, now all the cultivators are watching with some surprise what Mao Xiao is doing. Now they know that Lin was right and that this guy is really to blame for what happened. Now, seed of the water of gluttony. They hear Mao's cries. The guy looks at the result of his efforts with a satisfied smile. Right now, he is using the demon cultivation technique, and the tabby cat lying in front of him is turning into a huge tiger, and the fiery force immediately engulfs the unfortunate animal. Gu Yue covers her face with her hands in horror. Now there is no doubt about the identity of the owner of the water of gluttony. She thinks about how for some reason it always rains at such terrible moments, adding even more sadness to the whole situation. Old man, can you untie me already? Lin turns his head to Gushu. Hearing a rude order to shut up in response, he rolls his eyes in displeasure. Another system window appears, and the guy sees that Gu Yue and Mao Xiao have temporarily separated, due to which his chi luck has increased by 20 points. And as a reward, he receives another 1,000 points of villainy. At this time, his younger sister Nalan Qingyun comes to his room. She brought her older brother a dish that she had prepared with her own hands. But to her surprise, the room turns out to be empty. The girl doesn't know that her older brother is currently in one of the many hotels in this city. He is still tied up and all he can think about is whether they will let him go today. Guye comes out of the shower. She has already managed to bathe and change clothes, and now she's worried that she feels something strange inside herself. At that moment, another window pops up in front of Lin, and it gives him the task of winning this girl over within 3 months, promising a whole 50,000 villain points as a reward. Lin's eyes widen in shock as he looks at the sign that says, "If this fails, the owner will be destroyed." Why are they suddenly going to destroy me? The guy mentally screams, going berserk. He understands that this mission is the same as sending him to certain death, but he can't do anything. The system window has already closed. With brother Mao Xiao's current strength, if he came into contact with the water of gluttony, there was a fear that it would immediately swallow him up. But that nascent soul next to him was very suspicious, in Gushu's opinion. Yu hopes that the seed of the water of gluttony was created by this soul, and senior brother Mao doesn't even know about it. Lin gets angry and decides it's time to spill the beans. He rips off the ropes and begins to loudly scold everyone. "You look good, but you don't think with your brain," he shouts at the girl. "Are you stupid or dumb? Is your head completely empty?" Lin continues. He harshly tells Gushu that the man has a weak mind despite his high level of cultivation, because he allowed someone to use the lady for his own purposes and still thinks it is reasonable. Hypothetically speaking, it makes absolutely no difference whether the water of gluttony is related to that nascent soul, because now that Mao Xiao has obtained that seed, they have all become his cauldron. And besides, why does a nascent soul need such a cauldron at all? Seeing the expression on Mrs. Yui's face, the boy exhaled and fell silent, fearing punishment. He freezes and hesitantly raises his hand, intending to say something in his defense. But suddenly, instead of anger, Yue begins to sob loudly. The girl, through tears, says that she grew up with Mao since childhood, and simply cannot believe that he is capable of such meanness, and then suddenly clutches her stomach. Gushu immediately runs up to his mistress. The girl falls to her knees and rests her hands on the cold floor, and the keeper freezes in indecision. Yue, having learned about the water seed, tried to burn it with the family mystical fire. Apparently, this caused a backlash. Lin selfishly thinks that if Yue dies, the task issued by the system will also become invalid. Plus, he's a villain, so it doesn't matter that he doesn't save someone dying right in front of him. Moreover, this girl also tried to kill him. Despite his thoughts, Lin still cannot do something so bad. Unable to bear it any longer, he asks the system to open a store and list items that conceal the seed of the water of gluttony. The system opens the villain shop and the guy sees a few suitable items, but each of them costs just under 1,000,000 villain points, while he only has 30,000. And then he notices the method of pure yin and yang, which costs exactly 30,000. During the work of this method, a man and a woman put the necessary seals into each other's bodies, which allows them to suppress foreign objects, as well as improve spiritual power and increase the likelihood of a breakthrough in cultivation. Lin is thinking that the system was specifically targeting his entire points balance. But he has no choice, and he makes the purchase. And just in time, because Gushu was already about to try to push out the water seed with his chi. But Lin grabs his wrist, not allowing him to risk his life to save the lady. He asks the old man to go outside and stay there until he saves Gu Yue in his own way. This infuriates the man, and he orders Lin to get lost unless he wants to die. His angry cries are interrupted by the mistress's bloody cough. Lin calmly replies that now they can all trust only him. Out of desperation, Gushu decides to trust this strange guy once. At the same time, he promises to find him and kill him if something happens to the lady. Having finished speaking, the old man disappears in a split second. Lin smirks that Gushu even speaks harshly and trivially. The guy decides to ask why the system doesn't stop him from saving the girl, and gets the answer that the actions to save are within the character settings. Satisfied with this answer, Lin begins to use the pure yin and yang method. It takes some time before Yue finally comes to his senses and feels an unusual coldness from using the method. Lin says with a smile that it seems that the seed of gluttony water has been suppressed. The girl finally regains consciousness and unexpectedly feels that she is completely naked to the waist. She looks down to make sure, and immediately covers her chest with her hands and blushes deeply. Her angry cries and promises of a quick death for Lin are heard throughout the area. After using the pure yin and yang method for a long time, it was morning, and Nalan was in her elder brother's room. She opened her sleepy, reddened eyes, and her gaze did not promise anything good to her brother. The girl resolutely stood up from the table where Linya had been waiting all night. She never heard from him again, which led her to conclude that someone was having so much fun that they forgot about their little sister. Unaware of the latest threat, Lin leaves the hotel at this time. His face and body are covered with growing bruises and abrasions. He promises himself in his mind that within 3 months, he will make Gu Yue kneel at his feet. A mother passing by with a child tells the baby not to look at the strange man who looks like an idiot. Having laughed vilely at this, Lin finally returns home. He feels like no one noticed that he spent the whole night at the Xiao family. Contrary to his thoughts, Sister Nalan silently appears right behind his shoulder, and again the sounds of powerful and cruel blows spread throughout the area. At this time, Gu Yue and Gu Shu were discussing that with the appearance of another person, the scope of application of the invisibility technique would expand. Behind them, Lin appears again, this time with his sister Nalan. Together they watch as a boy named Zhao Jian moves towards Mao's house. He comes inside without knocking to check on Mao and whether his wound is healing. But what he sees in the house shocks the boy. "What are you doing?" he screams in panic, to which Mao Xiao replies with a slight smile that he is recycling the corpse of a gray demon wolf to heal himself. With a scream, Zhao rushes straight at him and demands that he stop. The gray demon wolf belongs to him. The guy uses it as a medicine for his sick mother. Every day she needs medicine, and only this wolf can support her condition until the wounds of the boy himself and his sisters heal, so that they can hunt another wolf. But now Mao Xiao has ruined everything, and Zhao regrets helping that heartless bastard. Mao replies that he was grateful for saving him before, but now they want to kill him over a trifle. "So don't accuse me of being impolite," Mao says, grinning nastily. Releasing his power, he commands the flames of gluttony to devour the man. "Ungrateful trash!" Zhao shouts, only now realizing what's going on. The dying boy's screams are heard by his mother and sister, who remained waiting for him on the street. Frightened, they push the door and enter the house. To their horror, they see the already cooling body of the dead Zhao. They immediately understand who is guilty of his death. Mao tells them that he did not intend to kill Zhao, and that he himself is to blame for what happened. Seer, the deceased's sister, is eager to avenge her brother, but her mother stops her. She takes her daughter away from this terrible house because she understands perfectly well that they will not be able to defeat such a strong and cruel person. Xiao Mao, with a mocking smile, tells them after them that he is honest and fair and will not kill innocents indiscriminately. Gu Yue and the other cultivators were still watching everything that was happening. The girl, in a fit of anger, breaks a tree branch with her hands, swearing at Mao. Gushu asks her to go back to the residence and not to be seen by that person so as not to get hurt. Deciding not to look at this horror any longer, they prepare to leave, but Lin remains. The system notifies that Mao Xiao lost 3,000 luck points at once, while Lin himself gained 600 luck points and a whole 30 points of villainy, which fully compensates for the points spent on saving the girl. In the evening, Lin heads back to the sect on a flying house. He sits at the table looking thoughtfully out the window. Now Mao Xiao has no luck left to use, and that's good for Lin. But the guy is unnerved by the presence of Gu Yue, who for some reason is also heading to the sect with him. She is not a disciple of the sect, and Lin asks if she is afraid that Mao Xiao will find her, to which the girl sadly lowers her eyes to the floor. Lin realizes that she still has feelings for Mao Xiao, but with her arrival, it will be more convenient for the guy to carry out the system's task, so he decides not to waste time. Lin touches the girl's chin with his fingertips and makes her lift her head slightly to look into her tear-stained eyes. The guy quietly says that he didn't mean to bully her at all, but he has to ask if Yue is afraid that he will eat her since she is on his territory. A sly grin appears on his face as he leans even lower towards the young lady's face. The villain's points increase by another 500, and Yue screams indignantly and moves away. Lin presses even harder, gently pushing the girl and laying her completely on the bed. Gu Yue recalls out loud that Lin has already seen every part of her body and blushes again. The system notifies that the conquest progress is 35%. It was at this moment that the door opened and Nalan silently entered the room, and the dishes she had brought with her fell out of her hands. The girl freezes on the threshold, shocked by what she saw. Lan understands that he is finished. The girl, without thinking, takes the scabbard in her hands and slowly draws her sword. And again, the loud screams of the guy and the sounds of blows overtaking him begin to be heard. He is saved from the final massacre by a flame that suddenly appears outside the window. Looking outside, the cultivators realize that it is stone fire. Below them stands a stone dragon, a foundation peak level monster that loves to devour minerals and contains a stone fire seed that is a class lower than mystic fire. His talent is hard armor, which can transform ingested minerals into the surface of his skin, forming a hard shell. The stone dragon directs a stream of its flame at the tree behind which a small, frightened man is hiding. The baby had already said goodbye to life when suddenly the fire died down and the sounds of battle began to be heard. Looking out from behind the tree, he saw that the stone dragon had been defeated. Lin, who easily dealt with the dragon, is going to bring it to his master, who loves such things. The joyful baby looks at his savior with huge eyes shining with delight. Meanwhile, a scandal erupts in the flying house. Nalan yells loudly at Yue, sending her back to Mao Xiao, to which she replies that she is not going anywhere and that she likes being here. Nalan decides that this girl has her eye on her older brother, and this fact makes her incredibly angry. She was sure that her beloved elder brother would never be interested in someone like this Gu Yue. Their heated argument is interrupted by the opening door. A happy and proud Lin enters, carrying a huge carcass of a stone dragon on his shoulder, and next to him stands the rescued baby. The girls immediately put on the most innocent look possible. Lin is extremely tired, so the first thing he does is take a sip of water. He sits down on a chair and a little man carefully pours him a cup of water from a decanter. Lin automatically says thank you and takes his first sip, and then he chokes on the water and spits it out sharply right on the baby. "What is this little thing?" the boy shouts. To which the girls respond that this thing returned with him and they just wanted to ask about it. Realizing that they said this phrase at the same time, the girls immediately start snapping at each other. Lin, meanwhile, leans tiredly on the table and asks the little man where he came from, to which the baby actively gesticulates and begins to babble something. According to Lin, the creature says that it was attacked by a large and terrible stone dragon. The monster breathed hot fire on him, so the baby got scared and hid behind the nearest tree. And then Lin appeared and heroically killed the terrible dragon and saved the baby. Gu Yu looks at the unusual little man in surprise. Nalan, with no less interest, carefully touches him and asks Lin what the name of this baby is. Lin decides to find out from the system what species this little man belongs to. Checking the basic information about this creature will cost him 10,000 villainy points. Lin gets mad and swipes the window with his hand, not ready to pay so much for a piece of information. Meanwhile, Nalan is already actively playing with the little man. Lin suggests simply calling him Aya, since the baby keeps repeating that word. Deciding not to spend so many points despite her interest, Lin decides to study this little guy a little later. In the meantime, he intends to leave this creature on the flying house and continue the journey with it. Very soon they arrive at the Qingyun sect. A happy and slightly tired Lin walks ahead, carrying baby Ai on his shoulders. Nalan angrily demands that Yue go away somewhere far away and not pursue her and her brother. In response, she hears that Yue is going to pay her respects to the fairy Biyun, and the rest is not Naylan's concern. At this time, Lin notices a goose going about its business and tries to make a heart out of their shadows, to which the goose snorts and turns away, refusing. Lin grins promisingly and suddenly finds himself right behind the goose. After some time, the system notifies that the guy has successfully roasted the sect master's large goose and receives 2,000 villainy points for this. Already finishing the goose, Lin is surprised to see many people climbing the peak. After a minute of thought, the guy understands what the reason is. It's time for the annual recruitment meeting, and he wonders how many people will be his younger brothers and sisters this time. Suddenly, the system warns of the appearance of the Chosen One from heaven. An astonished Lin even suggests that it is Mao Xiao, who is planning to hide his identity and sneak into their sect as a disciple. At this time, down below, one of the students carefully examines all the girls who have arrived, noting the most beautiful ones. In his hand is a golden object of an unusual shape, allowing the guy to recognize the level of charm of each of the beauties. Today, the number of girls with charms above 70 has exceeded 50, which delights the guy. He remembers with horror his native village and the local girls and boys who fell for him. These memories make him bang his head against the wall in an attempt to get rid of them. The golden object in his hand is the Book of the Immortals, and the young man asks it a question. He wonders how high his cultivation level will rise if he manages to bewitch all the beauties of this sect present. And the book replies that in that case, he will reach the fusion stage. In the 9 continents, cultivation is divided into 8 stages, the first of which is the stage of refining qi and mastering spiritual energies. Then comes the golden core stage, and the ability to fly without outside help. Then the base stage, capable of controlling flying swords. Next comes the stage of the nascent soul. The next stage is the stage of transformation, where the nascent soul is transformed into a true spirit. This is followed by the stage of fusion, when the spirit and body merge into one whole, returning to their original state. Then comes the stage of transcendence, and after that comes the stage of Mahayana. In all 9 continents, the fusion stage is only found in the highest sects. Therefore, the stranger thinks that if he can make all the beauties of the sect his own, then he will be able to do absolutely anything he wants. Carried away by his thoughts and insidious plans, the boy sits and quietly talks to himself, causing bewilderment and contempt among the other students. Lin at this time goes down to find the very one chosen by heaven. He looks at this boy with a bit of surprise, already realizing that he is the chosen one. His name is Han Zong. He is a harem master, the owner of the valuable treasure list of beauties, a lazy person, and an adventurer. His luck is only 3,000, and Lin is extremely surprised by this choice of heaven. The system tells him that this adventurer can be dangerous, and for the safety of the sect and its girls, Lin must capture the list of beauties, and as a reward he will receive as many as 80,000 points of villainy. To the guy's surprise, the system does not impose any penalties for failing to complete this task, but he still freaks out again and dismisses the notification window, not intending to trust this stupid system. The guy is sure that she is definitely plotting something behind his back. Meanwhile, Han Zong looks around to find girls with a beauty level above 90, which the beauties list promised him. At the moment, he had only seen a maximum of 89 beauty points. The guy freezes in delight right on the stairs when he sees a girl coming down. The stranger's facial features are simply delightful. Han Zong can't find words to describe how beautiful she is. The beauty list tells him that the girl's name is Dugu Yu. Her charm level is 99 points, and she is an unrivaled beauty. The guy immediately asks the treasure what level he can reach if he conquers this beauty. The beauty list tells him that it will be a golden core. Han Zong grins dirtily as he targets Dugu Yu, but he immediately becomes furious when Lin Bei, who is still unfamiliar to him, approaches the girl. "How dare he approach my woman?" Han Zong mentally fumed. Lin asks Dugu Yu why she is here instead of the master, to which the girl explains that the master is currently in seclusion and asked her to replace him. Lin is willing to bet that their master is actually in the Garden of Eden right now, and he turns out to be absolutely right. In the Qingyun sect's Paradise Garden, Biyun sneezes loudly, immediately guessing that it was Lin Bei who was saying something behind her back again. Xiaoli immediately hands the girl a clean handkerchief. Biyun stretches out her legs, using them to form a figure out of the sand, the ever-annoying Lin Bei. After the disciple recruitment ceremony is over, she will show this scoundrel how to respect his master. A loud bell rings, attracting everyone's attention. The Qingyun sect's 404th disciple recruitment ceremony has officially begun. This time, the host was Qin Ting, and he announces the first test of this recruitment ceremony. It's called the Secret Kingdom. There are only 10 islands in this kingdom, and each one is designed for 100 participants. To pass the test, cultivators must find the yin-yang fish hidden on the islands. You need to collect a pair of fish from the mechanisms, and each pair is on 3 islands, which means that only 3 can be winners on each island. Death in the secret kingdom is just an illusion, after which the subject disappears from the island and reappears in the square safe and sound. Through a giant screen, everyone will be able to watch the performance of each cultivator. Lin watches as all the participants walk inside. Usually the competition at the first level is very fierce. Hanzong was also already in the secret realm, standing right in front of the pair of cultivators. The guy in front of him immediately felt an incredible desire to kill him as soon as he saw Hanzong. His name is Qinglong, and he has no intention of holding back, so he is already starting to form a cloud of energy, preparing to attack. Hanzong looked at him silently with a good-natured smile. Under the power of Yunyin's beauties list, the girl who came with this guy treacherously thrust her sword straight into his back, piercing him through and through. Qinglang looks over his shoulder, not yet fully comprehending what happened. Yunyin holds the sword tightly, now dripping with bright drops of her brother's blood. With a crazy smile on her face, the girl says that she will not allow him to harm Hanzong. The audience watches in amazement as Yunyin, as if under a spell, approaches Hanzong and kindly asks if she did everything right. The most beautiful girls, ready for anything, instantly gather around this guy. Lin thinks this guy is really dangerous. Suddenly, he finds himself wanting to kill Hanzong too. Not only he, but also Genren Zixiao, the lord of Qingshu and Zixiao Peaks, felt the same way now. And all the other elders and masters now feel the same way. And the fairy Kang Lian finds this young man very attractive, and even thinks of inviting him to the peak of the heavenly azure lotus. Another peak master senses something similar, and they all begin to realize that this is all very strange and suspicious. Lin suspects that this guy just has a new ability, so he asks the system to update his panel. Indeed, Hanzong had gained a new ability, Devilish Charm, and even this guy's luck immediately increased by 100 points. An impressive group of girls had already gathered around him, admiring his talent. Hanzong thinks that he can now easily repay the loan he took from the beauty list to obtain the devilish appearance and even subjugate the entire sect at once. One of the participants crawls towards Hanzong and the girls with the last of his strength, not understanding why his beloved betrayed him so suddenly today. He grabs her leg with his bloody hand, asking her to pay attention to him. This makes the girl furious. "How dare you touch me with your filthy hands?" she screams in rage, raising her sword over his body. "I'll kill you!" She screams and lowers the sword, cutting through the body of her former lover. He disappears immediately, but on the girl's ankle, the bloody mark from his hand still stands out as a bright spot. So she says that since this leg was touched by another man, it should now be cut off too. This leg is defiled and must be destroyed. A surprised Hanzong tells the girl that she shouldn't go that far, but she is sure of the opposite, like all the other beauties. Now Lin understands why there is no penalty for failing to complete this task. If he fails, then absolutely all the girls, including those dear to him, will turn into the same crazy monsters. Meanwhile, in the Garden of Eden, the mentor continues to spend her time usefully. She enjoys building sandcastles with Xiao Li. They spent a lot of time on this, and all that was left was to put the last flag on top of one of the towers. Now, finally, they are finished and admire their own creation with admiration. But before they can really enjoy it, a figure lands right on the castle, destroying it to the ground. "Teacher, there is an emergency!" Lin Bei shouts as he approaches them. It takes him a long time to understand why the system gave him 100 points right away. Both girls look at him with hatred and contempt. The teacher, without thinking, rushes at the guy, twisting and wringing his arm. Xiaoli timidly tells her that in a little while, Lin Bei will simply die. The guy, with a pleading voice, barely audibly asks for mercy. The teacher agrees not to kill him, since Xiaoli asks her to do so. Lin Bei's soul had almost left his body, right before the teacher's eyes. But, seeing this, she deftly moves her fist and returns the soul to its place. Then, as if nothing had happened, the girl asks what happened. Lin catches his breath and replies that there was a villain with a very strange ability at the recruitment ceremony, planning to turn all the girls into his personal harem. Just hearing this, the teacher becomes furious and promises to chop the scoundrel into mincemeat and feed him to the pigs. She grabs Lin's hand and says goodbye to Xiaoli, instantly flying up. The girl waves her hand after them, inviting them to play again sometime. Meanwhile, Hanzong continues to increase his personal harem. There are more and more beautiful girls around him. Their abandoned boys, reborn in the square, cry loudly and curse everything in the world. The The leader, however, rushes forward and tries his best to raise their fighting spirit. "Our goal?" he shouts loudly to the guys crowded around. "Defeat Han Zong! Destroy the pest!" The rejected youths shout in unison. Meanwhile, teacher Bi Yoon landed on the square with Lin. Her appearance was announced to everyone by a huge explosion, which scattered heavy stones in all directions. She thinks it was a perfect landing. Seeing Han Zong on the huge screen, she immediately became tense. The girl feels that her subconscious has suddenly become imbued with sympathy for this vile guy. She turns to Lin, ordering him to tell her everything he could find out about this man. The guy says that this cultivator's gift is called Devil's Appearance, and it makes women gradually fall in love with him and men thirst for murder. Bai Yoon understands that this is indeed a serious problem. But fortunately, this guy's cultivation level is only at the cultivation stage, so not all is lost yet. According to the ancient manuscript of the sect Records of Great Tranquility, in the ancient era there already existed a man with a devilish appearance who was in the stage of divine transformation. He turned almost all of the immortal fairies in the martial arts world into his harem, and then waged a war on the male cultivators that lasted for decades. It all ended with the fact that, with the help of the Roar of Awakening technique of the Buddhist bald monks, it was possible to free most of the women, after which all the cultivators together destroyed this man, and his ashes were scattered by these same fairies. At this time, Han Zong is delighted by the number of girls in love gathered around him. He charmed all the girls of the sect, and each of them is ready to do anything for his love. The men, on the contrary, are increasingly filled with rage and a desire to destroy the hated Han Zong. Dugu Yu also fell under the influence of this artifact, although she had not yet fallen into the abyss of madness. Bai Yoon, noticing that even the peak masters had fallen under the devil's influence, was already thinking about asking those very monks for help. But such a round trip would take several days, and it is unknown whether there is anyone left who possesses the Roar of Awakening technique, created specifically to counteract the spell of the devilish appearance. Lin decides to check with the system to see if it has this technology in its villain shop. To his surprise, the system actually has the necessary equipment in the store, and it costs only 2,100 points. Without thinking, the guy pays for the purchase. He turns to his mentor and says that he has mastered the technique of the Roar of Awakening. The girl is surprised by this because even she herself does not know this technique. With an awkward laugh, the guy replies that he learned this technique completely by accident. The mentor decides that it doesn't matter at all where he learned this technique. The only problem is that Lin's power is not enough to awaken everyone, so she will help him use the Roar of Awakening. The fairy, without hesitation, takes off the golden bell to use as a megaphone. Lin Bei happily supports this idea. Finally, they take action. The guy uses the wake-up roar technique, directing the sound directly into a kind of megaphone. The sound of the roar spreads throughout the entire area, reaching the ears of every cultivator present here. This turns out to be enough for them to be able to throw off the haze of obsession and come to their senses. Deciding that this is not enough, the mentor steps forward and loudly announces to everyone that they have fallen under the influence of the devil's form. Now the men of the sect understand why the desire to kill has been building up in their hearts all this time. Now it is necessary to destroy the devilish appearance as quickly as possible so that the tragedy of ancient times is not repeated. This concerns the safety of the entire sect, so sect leader Zixiao Genren is going to immediately head to the island's secret realm and deal with this. Lin Bei stops him, offering his help in this matter. Having received consent, the guy goes to the secret kingdom. He did this because if the sect leader himself killed Han Zong, the mission to capture the beauties list would be considered a failure, so he volunteered to deal with the problem himself. Bai Yoon agrees with this because only Lin possesses the Awakening Roar technique, the perfect remedy against the devilish form. The other elders agree with this argument and, to help Lin, set up containment arrays outside to prevent the criminal from escaping. Such rare opportunities to both save the face of a righteous person and carry out a villainous task come very rarely to Lin, so he is extremely pleased. He calmly heads straight towards Han Zong, who is looking around with a victorious air, looking for another beauty. "It's you, the one who had an affair with my wife," Han Zong cries out when he sees Lin. Lin scratches his head thoughtfully, trying to figure out which wife exactly, since there are clearly quite a few of them. Han Zong grins maliciously, confident that all men who approached his women must die. So he orders the girls in love to kill this guy, and they obediently go to the new enemy. Without waiting for them to approach, Lin Bei activates his skill. A powerful wave of sound knocks both girls off their feet and finally brings them to their senses. They come to their senses and try to understand where they are and what happened. In horror, they begin to realize the heinous acts they committed under Han Zong's influence. The guy who doesn't understand anything shouts at them to quickly finish off this white-skinned puppy. Lin chuckled at this statement and told Han Zong the good news that he had neutralized the influence of the devilish form. This makes Han Zong grit his teeth in a fit of impotent rage. The young men stand tensely opposite each other, preparing for battle. Lin senses that the teacher and the other elders have already evacuated all the people from the island. Now only the two of them remained in the secret kingdom. Lin Bei attacks the enemy mercilessly, easily dealing with the counterattack with just one blow. Han Zong sees that this guy is at the foundation stage, while he himself is only at the chi cultivation stage, meaning the forces are unequal. So he uses the beauties list again to increase his power. 2,000 points are deducted from his account, and his level is raised to the peak of laying the foundation. Energy spreads in waves throughout his body, and the young man screams loudly, unable to contain his joy and delight from these streams. Lin raises his eyebrows in confusion. "Prepare to die, lover of other people's wives," Han Zong shouts at him. "Now you are definitely finished, fall under the might of my power." Han Zong strikes and Lin easily dodges it. He thought it would be more difficult to deal with this guy. But apparently Han Zong thinks that all enemies should just stand there dumbly under his attacks, not even trying to dodge. Now it was his turn to attack. Lin uses the technique of heavenly palm descending from above to make the strike even stronger and more brutal. He had to spend a whole 1,000 points of villainy on this skill. The light emanating from Lin Bei blinds Han Zong and prevents him from fighting properly. He curses foully and tries to cover his eyes with his hands, trying to protect them from the too bright light, but it's all useless. And a second later, a heavenly toad created by Lin Bei lands on the guy. The villain chuckles and points out that the bastard has zero dodge. At his command, the heavenly toad steps aside, allowing Lin to approach Han Zong's crushed body. The villain squats down and searches the pockets of the deceased, trying to find the list of beauties. And just as he succeeds, suddenly the bloody hand of Han Zong tries to grab the treasure. The villain shouts in delight that this guy survived even after turning into a bloody mess. Han Zong mutters softly that he cannot die so easily, because he is destined to become a great ruler who rules the entire world. So he donates everything he has to the beauties list and asks them to give him strength in return. An extremely surprised Lin watches as Han Zong assumes his second form. The guy's entire body is filled with purple light. His flesh gradually melts, and only bones remain, on which unnecessary clothes hang like a sack. The bare skull of the recently living Han Zong turns black, and the eyes on his face glow menacingly. A hideous-looking skeleton rises to its feet, and a bright purple-pink flame burns above its skull. The cultivators watching the action notice a golden core hovering near his chest. This means that Lin Bei is now in mortal danger. This terrifies the cultivators, and only Fairy Bai Yun seems relaxed. She is sure that this guy always has a trump card up his sleeve. But the elders still believe that it is necessary to be ready to activate the backup plan at any moment. Meanwhile, inside the island kingdom, Lin Bei and Han Zong stand tensely on the forest path facing each other. Han Zong is now at the golden core stage, so he is confident that victory will be his. Lin Bei responded with a mocking grin. This impudence makes Han Zong even more angry, and he plans to use the golden core divine technique to instantly destroy the enemy. The boy stretches out his bony hand and tries to activate the divine technique. He doesn't succeed the first time, so he tries again. But even the second time, not a single movement of chi towards Lin was observed. Lin Bei covers his mouth with his hand and giggles disgustingly. After reaching the peak of foundation laying, the process of compressing the liquid spiritual force into Dantian begins. During this compression, the owner of spiritual power leaves multi-layered imprints of his soul on the surface of the future golden core. After successfully breaking through to the gold core level, these imprints form a mysterious pattern. And it is this pattern that contains the innate ability, that very divine golden core technique. And Han Zong's core is smooth as an egg, and Lin saw it clearly from the very beginning. So he burst into loud mocking laughter. Han Zong clenched his bony fists helplessly. "Shut up," he growls, gathering his chi again and launching another attack. Lin easily dodges the angry Han Zong's fist. The skeleton is sure that now he is much stronger than this idiot who managed to encroach on his woman. This guy, in his opinion, is just a pathetic coward who only knows how to run and dodge. But Lin is not at all embarrassed by this characterization, and all he does next is run away and dodge again. The cultivators, tired of watching this long chase, are laying out the playing cards. This fight has been going on for so long that they are tired of watching this picture. Therefore, the elders and heads of the peaks gathered around a large table, entertain themselves with a light game of cards. Bayun is distracted for a moment and asks his elder brother mentor how things are going on the battlefield, to which the man replies that nothing has changed and the chase is still going on. But after finishing his last sentence, the mentor notices that the opponents have stopped. Something has clearly changed. Indeed, Lin Bei and Han Zong stood calmly opposite each other, glaring at their opponent. "What? Are your legs tired? Are you finally ready to die?" the skeleton asks, unable to bear it any longer. Lin smiles and replies that he actually stopped running simply because there was no longer any need to. Han Zong initially thinks that he is being fooled again and becomes even more angry. The skeleton charges, but to his surprise, Lin stops the attack with just a touch of his palm. In fact, he was deliberately dodging in order to exhaust the enemy's spiritual energy reserves. Han Zong's fake golden core, without the constant supply of spiritual power, would simply crumble from within. The skeleton, in horror, touches with his palm the place where the golden core should be. "He has no more strength." Lin laughs at him. The guy takes a firmer hold of the skeleton's second hand, still extended towards him. One sharp movement and he easily tears the bone out of the joint. Han Zong screams furiously in pain and horror that has belatedly overtaken him. Lin throws the bone aside. He's dragged things out long enough. It's time to deal with this Han Zong once and for all. The villain extends his hand closer to the guy and smiles with anticipation. Han Zong freezes, already knowing how it will end. A powerful explosion is heard. The body of the finally dead guy takes on its original form, and his remaining luck goes to the winner. Lin completed the task given by the system and received the promised 80,000 points of villainy for it. It has received a beauties list, and now the system is being updated, promising new features to appear very soon. His mission is accomplished and the guy returns back to the real world. He honorably completed the task given to him and dealt with Han Zong. Bayun proudly praises his disciple. The mentor allows the student, as a reward, to visit the martial arts hall and choose any one secret technique. This is a great fortune because usually access to the martial arts hall is open only to students who have reached the level of the golden core. In order to eliminate the consequences caused by Han Zong's interference, the Qingyun sect held a new disciple recruitment ceremony. As a result, 20 people successfully passed all the tests and joined the sect. 2 days later in the pavilion library, Lin decided to take advantage of the generous reward and entered the martial arts hall. He thoughtfully examines the shelves of books, looking for something that suits him and discarding useless sections. There is too much here that can in no way be useful to him with his villainous system. The young man's attention is drawn to the section of formation techniques, on the sign of which the inscription, "No idiots allowed," is displayed. This postscript was clearly written by the hand of his beloved mentor. Only she could show such stupid pickiness. Suddenly, Lin's eye catches a sign with the promising title, Erotic Arts. Without thinking, he grabs the books from this section, and literally a second later the guy's nose starts bleeding. Paying no attention to this, he continues his study. Drops of blood quietly drip down from the tip of Lin's nose, staining the clean floors of the martial arts hall. The enthusiastic guy would never have thought that cultivators could have fun the way these books described. These tomes don't look very decent. If Lin took them outside, the teacher would definitely beat him to death with them. The guy decides to stay and see what else is interesting here. While studying the most interesting literature, evening comes imperceptibly and the sun sets behind the horizon. Tired and happy, Lin lies with his arms outstretched on a huge pile of various books from that unusual section. This pile contains either prohibited content or something that will never pass censorship. Lin decides that it was a completely useless day and that he wasted his time. And then the guy feels a sharp, unexpected pain in one of his fingers. He raises his hand to his face and notices a cut that has appeared out of nowhere. Lin looks around to find the object that injured him. He immediately finds a small bronze dagger of a rather creepy appearance. The thing in his hand suddenly begins to glow brightly. Lin doesn't understand what's happening and what he should do. Anyone watching from the street can now see a huge column of red flame shooting straight out of the roof of the martial arts hall. "So that's why you sent him to this hall?" Biyun's voice is heard. Fairy didn't expect that Lin would be chosen as the successor. Now both she and the mentor know that Lin is the bearer of the Blue Lotus legacy of their sect. Whether he will be able to obtain the Blue Lotus sword cannon and become the sole heir depends only on fate. After confirming that their plan has succeeded, the cultivators leave. At this time, Lin still doesn't understand what happened. The system tells him that he has received the item Edge of Heaven, which is one of the 9 keys to open the secret realm, and part of the grand legacy belonging to the Chosen One by fate. Although he doesn't understand everything yet, the guy guesses that he has received something incredible. But in order to open the secret kingdom of Kinlian, it is still necessary to collect all 9 keys, and then you will need to fight with the remaining 8 heirs from different sects to determine the only worthy one. Lin believes that such a selection is very difficult and tough, but the system hints to him that it is not at all necessary to defeat all the heirs. It is enough to simply take possession of all the available keys. Lin immediately remembers one very clever function of his villainous system. With its help, the guy materializes the sealed Blue Lotus sword cannon. Who would fight fair anyway? He laughs happily. On the Juzhou continent, all practices are divided into 2 types, ordinary and hereditary. Conventional practitioners follow the standard path of a cultivator, progressing through the stages in order. Obtaining the Edge of Heaven means becoming a hereditary practitioner. The Blue Lotus sword cannon requires that a hereditary practitioner accumulate 4 to 5 times more spiritual energy at the foundation stage. Then, as you move towards the golden core, using secret techniques, 2 cores are forged in Dantian, a spherical one and a sword-shaped one. After the successor reaches the stage of spirit generation, a powerful flying sword spirit will also appear, and only the one who obtains the complete canon of the Blue Lotus sword will become the sole heir. Lin is extremely dissatisfied with the fact that he had to spend 130 points of villainy to obtain the Blue Lotus sword cannon. And now, the system tells him that he needs to spend another 900,000 points to remove the seal from him. And this makes him scream with anger. The guy decides that there is no point in killing himself over the points spent. But then, in a rage, he throws the tome that cost him so much money at the wall. The whole house shakes from the force of his rage. Having calmed down a little, Lin tries to think of something. Having failed to come up with anything worthwhile, he still asks the system if it has any ideas, to which she unexpectedly suggests 3 methods. This is a special bloodline, special techniques, and pills. Lin immediately notes 2 methods that are unsuitable for him for various reasons. All that remains are pills, which cost only 2,000 points. A little surprised, the guy clicks on exchange. Immediately, everything around comes into action and waves of power envelop the hero. Even though the system is a real bastard, it is still very powerful. Lin instantly became a 3rd-level alchemist. Now, extracting the essence of herbs and brewing premium pills is as easy as pie for him. That's exactly what he's going to do right now. And his first creation is the perfect pill returning the origin of Dantian. Lin decides to see how it works right away. It quickly absorbs the medicinal power and directs it to the Dantian. The effect is immediate. The villain realizes that he succeeded on the first try, which cannot but please. The elasticity of Dantian has increased and can now accommodate a little more spiritual energy, so he decides to increase the dose. Without further ado, he drinks it all at once. As you would expect from such high-quality pills, they work just fine. Lin ate 10 of them at once, and now his Dantian can hold 50% more spiritual energy. It's a pity that these pills can't be taken too often. Suddenly, the system window with the task appears in front of the guy again. Night falls, and a round, bright moon appears in the sky. Nalan slowly walks forward, remembering how her older brother had single-handedly resolved such a great crisis. Now the girl is interested in what he chose in the martial arts hall. Nalan stops abruptly when she sees Gu Yue right in front of her. She doesn't like that this strange girl is snooping around here so suspiciously, because most likely she is targeting her beloved older brother. Yu says that she is not interested in Lin at all, and this is complete nonsense. The girls start arguing loudly again. But very soon they suddenly fall silent, having caught some movement behind one of the nearest trees. In unison, they turn in that direction and strain their eyes to try to see what is hidden in the shadows. Nalan is outraged that this is the second suspicious snoop today. "Stop!" she shouts at the stranger in black who appears. Guye, however, doesn't intend to waste time on meaningless shouting and intends to catch the scoundrel. She takes out her whip and points it towards the stranger without hesitation. In a split second, it wraps around the shin of a rapidly running guy. Unable to stay on his feet, he falls to the ground with a loud thud. Both girls instantly find themselves next to him, forgetting their differences. "Tell me, why are you walking around here like that?" Nalan demands. The hand of a stranger lying limply on the ground catches her attention. The guy's fingers unclench and the girls see a small round ball in the middle of his palm. Within a split second, it begins to become covered with small cracks. The girls don't have time to react, and there is a very loud explosion. Both of them begin to cough from the smoke that corrodes their lungs and lose concentration. The masked stranger suddenly stands up and neither of them has time to defend themselves. A moment later, the girls are already lying unconscious on the wet, cold ground, having inhaled the soporific smoke. Lin, whose face is hidden behind a mask, picks up Gu Yue's whip. A few minutes later, both girls are already hanging from nearby trees. Their limbs are tied, and their mouths and eyes are covered with bandages. Lin finally pulls off the mask from his face, making it simply impossible to breathe. He completed the task he received from the system this afternoon. To his insane surprise, the villainous system promised him 5,000 villainous points if he could hang both girls from a tree for 6 hours. Don't blame me, blame this stupid system, Lin decides, having successfully completed the task. After some time, at the peak of spiritual resonance, Lin runs away from the enraged Nalan, who has guessed who exactly hung them from the tree that night. Never before had Lin seen his younger sister in such a mad rage. How did they even know it was me? He thinks in panic. Fire of spiritual resonance, Nalan shouts after him, releasing energy. Lin understands that things are bad. Another explosion is heard and the entire peak of spiritual resonance is covered in thick black smoke. Nalan and Yue are vigorously kicking their older brother, forgetting all their quarrels, but their fun is interrupted by Du Guyu. The dissatisfied girls are forced to stop the beating. In a month, there would be a meeting of the three sects, and for some reason the teacher decided to take Lin Bei with her this time. Also, Bi Yun would also like to see Gu Yue in this competition. Gu Yue and Lin leave, and Du Guyu and Nalan go swimming. Thanks to the wonderful water, all their daytime stress disappeared. Nalan asks her elder sister how long Lin and Yue will be away for this competition. Du Guyu teases her in response, hinting that Nalan will miss her beloved older brother terribly. Not at all. I'll forget even thinking about this scoundrel. Nalan immediately becomes indignant. Du Guyu thoughtfully says that sometimes she feels as if Lin's mischief is not his own doing. She suggests that her friend ask her brother if there is any reason why he behaves this way, but Nalan suddenly notices that their clothes are missing from where they left them. She tells this to Du Guyu, who is still bathing, and the girl opens her mouth in shock, immediately realizing who is to blame. It was Lin Bei who stole their clothes, and both girls screamed in rage throughout the forest, cursing him. At this point, the guy quickly leaves with their clothes because he doesn't want to fail the system's mission and run around the sect naked as punishment. He is ready to smash this damn system with its terrible tasks to pieces. A few days later, Lin Bei, comfortably seated on the edge of the roof, sings a famous romantic serenade at the top of his lungs. Without sparing his own throat, he sings loudly and this sound spreads throughout the entire area. Bai Yun tries her best to ignore the disgusting sounds that are disturbing her sleep. But in the end, the girl can't stand it anymore and opens her eyes, red from fatigue and lack of sleep. The unperturbed Lin Bei continues to perform a beautiful serenade, even while sitting on the roof of his mentor's chambers. This time the system has outdone itself with this task, but the guy can't fail it, otherwise he'll have to run around the entire Qingyun sect naked and skipping. Feeling movement behind his back, the guy turns to the mentor who appeared there as expected. The chrysanthemums have faded, you say? She repeats the line from the serenade in a frighteningly calm voice. And then there is an explosion. Nalan wakes up from such a bright light, thinking that it is already morning, but he immediately falls back asleep, unable to leave the warm, cozy bed. Bai Yun throws Lin, who has enraged her, far beyond the confines of her chambers. The guy gets a well-deserved 2,000 points for the completed task, but he is not at all happy about it. Ever since he got his hands on the beauties list, the system has gone crazy. As proof of this, the system window instantly gives the tense Lin another terrible task. Now he has to read romantic poems to a random girl on the street, and this task makes the guy scream loudly throughout the entire area. A whole month flies by unnoticed. Bai Yun checks to see if everyone who was supposed to come is there. After counting the students, the fairy realizes that Lin Bei is missing for some reason, but looking down, she recognizes a guy in a body wrapped in bandages, lying on the bare ground. Without thinking twice, she comes closer and touches the exhausted Lin with her foot. With a good swing, she sends the guy flying into the flying house with a powerful kick. Now everything is assembled and we can set off. In fact, Lin is happy that he finally got out of the sect. Because of this evil system and its tasks, lately all he does is beat him. Meanwhile, the system reminds him that there are less than 2 months left to conquer Gu Yue, but the guy doesn't have even a hint of an idea on how to win this girl over. Unexpectedly, Gu Yue comes to him herself. Her loud, indignant scream is heard throughout the entire flying house, and Lin does not understand why he is naked here, and she is the one screaming. "Pervert!" the girl shouts at him. Deciding not to argue with the highly illogical statement, Lin begins to pull on his clothes. Another system window appears, notifying you of the availability of a new feature. To unlock it, you need to spend another 1,000 points, which angers Lin to the extreme. But he has no choice and makes the purchase. Gu Yue, meanwhile, explains that she came here because her spiritual energy has become much purer lately, which is most likely due to the appearance of that very yin-yang seal. Therefore, she wanted to ask Lin if this seal had any other functions besides blocking the seed of gluttony. The system advises the puzzled Lin to tell the girl that in order to learn about the seal's functions, it is necessary to recreate that situation. For this, he will be awarded 100 points of villainy. Therefore, Lin decides to listen to the strange advice. Therefore, he literally repeats to the girl what the system wrote to him. Recreate that situation, Guyue asks, confused. And then she understands what this is about. Deboshi! She shouts indignantly at Lin Bei, blushing to the very tips of her ears and raising her hand to strike. Lin intercepts her palm, and at this time the system again prompts Lin what to say. How the hell does this system come up with lines like this? He mentally fumes. In the end, the guy decides that it's better to get a slap in the face than to run around the sect naked. So he decides to repeat the words of the system. Guyue looked at him warily, already expecting a trick. Lin slowly slides his hand just below her waist and quietly says that control over one's own body is the most important thing. You don't want anything to happen to your body again, do you? He asks softly, and the system gives him another 100 points. The guy is already mentally prepared to be beaten again. But Guyue surprises him by suddenly agreeing that there is logic in these words. Lin can't believe it actually worked. Following the system's prompts, he suggests blindfolding each other so that no one sees anything extra. The villain system gives him another 100 points, and the progress in conquering Guyue reaches 60%. Lin still can't believe that this is all really happening. The girl leans closer to him and slowly begins to take off her clothes. Guyue reminds Lin that he will have to blindfold himself too. The next thing the guy feels is incredible warmth and a feeling as if he is floating in the sun's rays, wrapped in something soft. But this wonderful feeling is suddenly interrupted. What's going on? Lin cries out in surprise. Just now they were on a flying ship, but obviously now they are definitely not there. Guyue and Lin look at each other in confusion when they realize that they are in some kind of sea. It becomes clear that they somehow miraculously teleported. The place they found themselves in looks very strange and unusual. Busy. Repeating that embarrassing practice, Guyue and Lin did not hear what was happening on the ship. Just 15 minutes ago, all the other cultivators noticed the rapidly appearing demonic rift. A bright red wave of demonic energy burst out from the rift and headed straight towards the flying ship. Only thanks to the spiritual resonance mirror that the mentor used, was it possible to defend against this attack. Thanks to the artifact, the entire ship was surrounded by a sparkling golden shield. And demonic energy could not break through such a powerful defense. But it still remains unclear why the rift leading to the demonic realm appeared here and now. Kino runs to teacher Biyun to report another problem. He searched the entire flying ship, but found neither Lin Bei nor Guyue there. What? The unpleasantly surprised mentor turned to the guy with lightning speed. She immediately contacted the other elders to report what had happened. The teacher told Genren Zixiao that, judging by the flame patterns when the rift appeared, Guyue and Lin Bei had entered the Yihuo demon realm, so she plans to return her true body to Qingzhou to save them. To which the girl received the answer that this could not be done, because the Qingzhou Heavenly Seal and the protective array of the 5-star receptacles required the presence of all 5 true bodies of elders to contain otherworldly demons. If even one person is missing, the array will inevitably collapse. And then otherworldly demons will penetrate the world and all of Qingzhou will suffer. Therefore, the mentor had to agree with these conclusions and promise not to use her true body. Genren Zixiao immediately realized that she was up to something, but Biyun reassured him that she would not do anything that would harm Qingzhou. Not wanting to hear any more, she immediately hung up. Qinting immediately began to worry about Guyue and Lin Bei, but the teacher reassured him as well. Yes, Biyun promised that she would not recall her true body, but she didn't say that she herself would not enter the demonic realm. Meanwhile, in the demonic realm, Yiho Lin Bei sits on the shore, holding a long fishing rod in his hands. One of the local birds settled comfortably on his shoulder. The guy's eyes are peacefully closed. He is completely focused on catching fish. Before he even notices, night falls, and the local birds have already managed to build a nest on his head. After some time, dawn comes. Shadows lie under the eyes of the sleep-deprived guy, and there are more and more birds on his body. Guyue approaches him with quiet steps. She wonders how many fish he has caught so far, but all she sees is a completely empty bucket. This makes the girl snort and laugh haughtily. Hearing her laughter, Lin Bei goes crazy and breaks the base of the fishing rod in half. With his hands proudly folded on his waist and his posture straightened, he began to convince Guyue that every member of their sect considered him the god of fishing. To which the girl laughs even louder, because Lin has not been able to catch even the smallest fish the entire time. During this squabble, none of them notices a monster that has appeared very close under the water. The line with the bait was still under the water, and it was this line that the monster grabbed and pulled sharply towards itself, tearing the rod out of Lin's hands. "What is this?" Gu Yue whispered tensely. Lin is sure that it is something huge and tasty. He resolutely dives straight into the water to catch their future dinner. Gu Yue doesn't have time to stop him. All she can do is wait, and as she waits, night gradually falls. The girl was already beginning to think that Lin had been eaten, when suddenly something began to rise from under the water. Almost immediately, a huge snake emerged from the depths of the water, its body pierced with many swords. Gu Yue screamed in horror, and the water had already extinguished the fire she had lit. And the snake, having noticed easy prey, is already heading in its direction. But he never gets to the girl, stunned by another blow from Lin Bei. The blade of his sword cuts off the monster's head in a split second. The monster falls onto the shore, and the force of the fall causes dust to rise up. Gu Yue covers her face with her hand and coughs. Pleased with himself, Lin Bei, with the air of a hero, places his foot on the body of the defeated monster. After studying the Blue Lotus sword cannon, he felt much more comfortable. Now you don't need to take the sword out of storage every time, just wave your hand. Lin approaches the body of the defeated monster and draws energy from it. Now he had another core of writhing flame. Looking at his card, the guy sees that he needs 3 more cores to awaken a special ability. Gu Yue doesn't understand his joy over some unknown beast flame. She thinks that if someone saw Lin so happy, they would think that he had received one of the top 10 amazing lights of the ranking. The guy remembers that the girl herself has the flame of the King of Golden Dragons, which ranks 7th in this ranking. So he replies with a slight reproach that most cultivators live their lives without ever receiving a single amazing fire. He asks Gu Yue to continue roasting the snake carcass while he prepares to leave and explore the surrounding area. But the girl calls out to him and Lin turns around. Gu Yao says that there is nothing here except the horizon. Only this black lake and the occasional black trees. It's been 30 days since they got here and she's afraid they're stuck here forever. Lin places his hand on the top of her head in a soothing manner, stroking it lightly. He is confident that they will definitely find their way back home. At this point, Lin nevertheless leaves to explore the surrounding area, and his progress in winning the girl increases to 75%. Gu Yue looks at him sadly. Lin thinks to himself that although he promised to find a way home, he still has no idea how to do it. And he is so hungry because he has been fishing for 24 hours without a break. It's a pity that we didn't manage to have a snack before leaving. And then his sensitive nose catches the delicious aroma of fried meat. Without thinking, the guy rushes towards the direction from which the magical smell comes. After all, this means that they are not alone here, and that there are still people in these deserted Redlands. Carefully lowering himself to the ground, he finds a cave right in the ground. The residual aroma of the meat comes from there. However, he had not noticed anything like this in this place before. But still, despite his doubts, the guy decides to look inside. And suddenly there he sees another sky. In complete shock, he looks up to see the sky he sees here. And again he looks down, making sure that the sky is also visible in the cave, albeit of a slightly different shade. After some thought, Lin sits down comfortably on the ground next to the mysterious cave. A great idea comes to his mind on how to find out something about this place. He decides to throw some object inside and see what happens. And that's exactly what he does. Lin immediately leans down, watching the objects fall with all his eyes. He waits for an answer until the morning, but nothing happens. The whole night had already passed, but not even the sound of a fall could be heard. Lin decides that they have discovered a new location and goes to tell Gu Yue about it. As soon as he leaves, the objects he threw there at night immediately fly back out of the cave. But the appearance of these objects has undergone significant changes. Their color changed to a dirty gray, and the golden glow disappeared completely, as if all the life force had been sucked out of them. Very soon, Lin comes to the amazing Gu Yue cave. This is really heaven. The girl cries out in amazement. After some deliberation, the cultivators decide to take the risk and go down. "Let's go!" Lin commands, and they jump straight into the cave. Finding themselves in a new place, the guy and the girl look around tensely. The landscape here is completely different from the one above. Seeing the vague outlines of something ahead, they decide to go and check it out. Trying to stay close to each other, Lin and Gu Yue move forward. Below, several pairs of someone's bright red eyes suddenly light up. Gu Yue doesn't pay attention to them right away and continues to calmly fly forward. However, looking down, she still notices the danger. But Lin, who had noticed this a little earlier, rushes towards her and pushes the girl aside. In the place where they had just been, a loud explosion was heard. The cultivators understand that there is something or someone in the forest. They peer tensely into the darkness. A huge clawed paw slowly emerges from the shadows of the forest and steps onto the ground, scratching it with its claws. The beast's mouth is wide open, giving the cultivators a clear view of its neat rows of razor-sharp teeth. "What the hell is this?" Lin screams. Below them, right below them, a huge beast with 3 heads at once had already appeared in full. The monster's eyes sparkle brightly, and saliva drips from its fangs. Lin and Gu Yue looked at the unusual monster with bewilderment. It looks like they won't be able to get any further without fighting this monster, so they decide to break through by force, and the girl rushes forward using the dragon's golden flame dance. Lin keeps up with her, activating the blue lotus sword chi. The unknown beast is not going to stand still and receive blows. A cloud of demonic energy is also forming near its mouth. The monster attacks, but its ball of energy is destroyed by a shield placed in time by Lin. The monster is not going to give up and tries again and again, but each of his attacks is repelled by Lin Bei, while at the same time trying to touch the monster's body at least a little. He uses the blue lotus sword again and tries to attack. Lin Bei gripped the hilt of his trusty sword tightly in his hands, concentrating on the battle. His entire body is enveloped in golden energy, and the sword feels like an extension of himself. The young man's eyes are determined. He is focused and confident. Lin Bei attacks, but his sword only slides across the monster's tough skin, causing no harm. The monster stands firmly on the ground, paying no attention to the enemy's blow and is about to attack again. But he can no longer reach Lin because the guy's waist is encircled by Gu Yue's whip. With one deft movement, the girl pulls Lin back to her at a safe distance. The guy tells her that he can't pierce this monster and asks the girl to be careful, because the power of this monster is definitely higher than the level of the golden core. Meanwhile, the 3-headed monster attacks again. Guyak decides to use the golden dragon scales for defense. Lin Bei activates the blue lotus defense formation. The monster's demonic energy bolt crashes straight into their jointly created shield. There is a feeling that the aura of the monster begins to press on the space more and more strongly. The cultivators cry out in surprise, not understanding what is happening, and the monster's energy is already crumbling their shield into dozens of small fragments. The aura of this monster at the moment of attack was definitely not weaker than that of the Gu Yue family's ancestor who had reached the fusion stage. Tears appear in the girl's eyes. She thinks that they will die here today. Lin strokes her shoulders soothingly as the huge monster rushes towards them again. "Watch out," the boy screams. Without thinking, he rushes closer to the girl and covers her with his body, taking the full brunt of the blow. The next thing he feels is terrible pain and dizziness. The monster is preparing to attack again, but the guy can't even move. He can't make a sound, and everything blurs before his eyes and the figures lose their outlines. Meanwhile, somewhere in space, Anubis senses the presence of the Lord of the Four Directions. The deity feels that the energy of the ruler is rapidly weakening. The decisive era has arrived. The ruler of the 4 directions of this time must not perish. So Anubis decides to save him by turning back time. Gu Yue and Lin are in a side dimension of the Yihuo demon realm, and there is a glitch in the weave of their fate. The Lord of the 4 Directions needs more power to face unexpected threats, so Anubis will turn this dimension into a testing zone to give him trials and blessings. But first he must ask the opinion of his superiors. "In the name of the Lord, I agree," the first highest one answers. "In the name of Buddha, I agree." The voice of the second highest is heard. "In the name of Tao, I agree." Finally, the third one answers. Meanwhile, teacher Bi Yun and the other cultivators opened the demonic rift again. It took a lot of time and effort to activate the ritual, but finally, everything worked out. The mentor orders the others to wait for her outside and prepares to head into the rift alone. But suddenly, the lost Gu Yue and Lin fall out of the opened portal. The rest of the cultivators' mouths open wide in surprise. Gu Yue immediately looked around for Lin Bei, but didn't see him anywhere nearby. To her embarrassment, the guy ends up lying right underneath her. Having apologized, the girl abruptly jumps off his body and quickly blushes. Bai Yun, who was already preparing to enter the portal, was shocked into silence. The mentor simply cannot find the words to respond to what is happening. Meanwhile, Gu Yue throws herself into Lin's arms, overjoyed that they survived. And her conquest progress suddenly reaches 100% at once. Qinting finds it incredible that these two were able to escape from the rift on their own. He tells the boys that the mentor spent a lot of effort and energy to open the rift again, and was already getting ready to go and save them. Still hugging, Gu Yue and Lin Bei turned around in surprise at the rift into which the still shocked teacher had almost fallen. Having calmed down, the cultivators return to the flying ship and continue on their way. Lin sits thoughtfully in his room, trying to understand what happened and how he himself managed to escape. After all, he clearly remembers that he was almost killed by that terrible monster. The guy starts to get angry at the incomprehensible system and demands information about the tattoo that appeared on his arm. No one knows when or how, but the system is ready to give him an explanation only for a whole million points of villainy. In addition, she notifies the guy that his previous actions are subject to punishment. Lin Bei's reckless actions that threatened his life grossly violated the system's rules, so she was forced to punish him by deducting 5,000 villainy points. All the guy's indignation about such a punishment is interrupted by Gu Yue, who entered the room wearing only a translucent nightgown. Lin doesn't understand why she came to him like this. Meanwhile, the system informs him again that it is necessary to observe the canons of the villain's image. Otherwise, he will face severe punishment. So the guy makes another dirty joke, hinting that Gu Yue definitely came here now to seduce him. But before he can finish speaking, the girl already pounces on him with a kiss. She came here to thank the guy for what happened in the demonic realm. Blushing in embarrassment, Gu Yue asks why he stood right in front of her when the monster rushed at them. Lin smiles, answering that he himself doesn't really know why. The body moved by itself. Is it my fault? He says with a grin, pulling the girl closer to him. Gu Yue places her hands on his shoulders and presses her whole body against the guy. Not my fault, she replies quietly before kissing him again. That night, Lin Bei and Gu Yue's cultivation skyrocketed. Meanwhile, in Dan City, Xiao Mao is diligently training his cultivation. In just a few months, thanks to numerous lucky coincidences, he reached the level of a gold core. He then successfully became a third-rank alchemist and joined the Danyuan sect. Moreover, in the city of Dan, he obtained 2 spiritual plants for his teacher that facilitated resurrection. Therefore, the spirit of the teacher is already anticipating how he will take revenge on his elder brother mentor and student who betrayed him. Suddenly, Xiao Mao coughed, interrupting his cultivation process. For no apparent reason, bright red blood spurts from his mouth. The teacher immediately turns to him with concern. Xiao Mao says that he just suddenly felt a tightness in his chest, as if something very important had been taken away from him forever. Morning comes and the flying ship still continues on its way. Lin Bei reluctantly begins to wake up, disturbed by the first rays of the sun. He opens his eyes abruptly, remembering the events of that night, and decides that it was a dream. And in this confusing dream, they, together with Gu Yue, redid everything that was possible. Lin looks ahead thoughtfully, remembering all the details of what happened. And then he looks away. Gu Yue is lying in his bed, sleeping soundly. But Lin Bei is not at all surprised by this, confident that this is just a continuation of the dream. But a second later, he jumps up on the bed and hugs the blanket to himself, finally realizing that this is all happening in reality. Immediately, he hears the dissatisfied muttering of the frozen Gu Yue, and the girl pulls the blanket over herself. Left completely naked, Lin Bei begins to realize the full extent of what he has done. His loud cry echoes throughout the entire flying ship. Despite everything, very soon they arrive on Dan Island. Once landed, the cultivators begin to disembark from the ship one by one. There are several students standing nearby, who immediately start whispering in surprise as soon as they see Lin Bei. It seems to them that the brother mentor is no longer the same as he was before, but what exactly the difference is, they do not yet understand. Qinting walks up to Lin and puts his arm around his shoulders, promising to show him all the famous entertainment spots in this city. To everyone's surprise, Lin bows politely and refuses, trusting that the humble monk no longer has any worldly desires. Baiyun stands nearby with Gu Yue, watching the events with interest. She casts a suspicious glance at the girl, who immediately blushes and lowers her head in embarrassment. There are 7 days left before the tournament starts, and the mentor allows her to spend this time as she sees fit. But before Gu Yue does so, they must go to one place together. Meanwhile, Lin was surprised to read a new notice, which said that there would be an opportunity for Xiao Mao at the auction, which he needed to seize. Otherwise, he would be killed by this cultivator. So the guy heads straight to the auction. Thanks to the dual cultivation these days, his cultivation level has grown very quickly. He has almost reached the gold core level. He is interrupted from his thoughts by an unfamiliar guy selling spiritual herbs and flowers. This cultivator is actively inviting everyone passing by to buy something from his wonderful shop. Lin approaches him and tells the happy seller that he will buy all the spiritual herbs he currently has. And then he hears right behind him 2 cultivators arguing loudly. And one of these voices is definitely very familiar to him. Turning around, Lin sees that it is indeed Xiao Mao. But this is the first time Lin has seen the guy this cultivator is arguing with. So he asks the system to give him information about this guy and even agrees to spend 1,000 villainy points. Lin learns that it is actually a girl, and her name is Bai Qing. She is the chosen one of heaven and the granddaughter of the second tower master of the Danyuan sect. Xiao Mao, unaware of all this, continues to yell at her, claiming that he had made an agreement with this herbalist yesterday, and she was cutting in ahead of time. Bai Qing calmly replies that she paid first, which means the spiritual herbs belong to her. When the chosen one of heaven meets the chosen one, it is like dry wood meeting flame. And if Xiao Mao and Bai Qing get close, then the guy's luck will definitely increase. Therefore, Lin Bei must intervene to prevent this from happening. Otherwise, Xiao Mao will kill him right at the 3-sex tournament. With these thoughts, Lin takes a swing and throws the first stone he can get his hands on at Xiao Mao. And the stone hits the guy right in the shoulder, causing him to experience a sharp flash of pain. Xiao Mao screams and falls to his knees in pain and surprise. He immediately begins to look around in search of the one who dared to attack him from behind. And immediately his gaze falls on Lin Bei, who is laughing at him. "Shameless scoundrel! How dare you show yourself to me?" Xiao Mao immediately explodes. Lin just continues to laugh mockingly. Xiao Mao finally loses control of himself and charges forward using wave-splitting palm. A blue lotus sword instantly appears in Lin Bei's hand, and with its help he easily repels the enemy's attack. There is an explosion and many fragments fly in all directions. Lin laughs again and asks Xiao Mao not to be like a woman and not to pick on this young man who has already paid for the flowers. In his mind, he notices that this guy's cultivation level is growing at a breakneck speed. Xiao Mao is not going to give up and summons his sword, deciding to continue the fight. Today, he intends to cut Lin Bei into pieces to vent all the hatred accumulated in his heart. Lin tightens his grip on the sword, getting into a fighting stance and preparing to parry the blow. When their swords cross, the villain realizes that everything is not as simple as he thought. Xiao Mao's eyes are shining and sparkling, and his mouth is bared tensely. Without giving Lin time to collect his thoughts, the boy attacks again. Once again, their swords clash, and this time, Xiao Mao's strike is stronger than the previous one. The power of this attack sends Lin flying backwards. His cultivation level is now much lower than his opponent's, so he grabs Bai Qing's wrist, already knowing what he will do next. To defeat the strong while being weak is not something a villain like him can do. Therefore, he runs away with lightning speed, taking with him the one chosen by heaven. An angry Xiao Mao remains standing when he realizes that his opponent has fled again. But since Lin Bei is here today, it means he is participating in the 3-sex tournament. So Xiao Mao will get to him sooner or later, and this cools his anger a little. At the tournament, he will wash away his shame by making Lin bleed to death in the arena, separating his head from his torso. Unaware of his thoughts, Lin Bei lands on the ground with the chosen one, who thanks him for his help. After assuring the girl that it was nothing and that there was no need to thank him, Lin gave his name and introduced himself to her. The girl, in turn, replies that she is glad to meet such a noble man, but at the same time still hides her true gender from him. They then decide to go to the auction together. Quite quickly, the cultivators reach the auction hall and go inside. Welcome to the Dan City Chamber of Commerce. A pretty girl greets them at the entrance. She is the auctioneer for today's event. Bei King says that the girl's name is Li Zhen. She is the second daughter of the Li family and also the first beauty of the city. Lin is a little surprised by such good knowledge, to which the girl replies that she has lived in this city for a long time, so she knows a little about such interesting personalities. After Li Zhen's announcement, the auction finally begins. Teacher Dan is convinced that the final lot today will be the miraculous spiritual herb Ju, which will help his disciple Xiao Mao reach the level of the birth of the spirit in just 1 year. Li Zhen, meanwhile, steps forward and announces the first lot. This is a third-rank pill, which is often called the Clear Heart Pill, and its starting price is 500 spiritual stones, and the minimum step is 10 stones. The auction participants are surprised and dismayed that the event is starting today with such a rare and valuable treasure. Therefore, trading begins immediately and is very active. The bidders gradually raise the price in 10-stone increments, but Xiao Mao is determined and is not satisfied with such a slow pace. So the guy immediately offers a price of 800 spiritual stones. Lin Bei, who was nearby, was not at all surprised. He is sure that the real fun is just beginning. Therefore, he immediately offers 1,600 spiritual stones for this pill, beating the previous bid. Xiao Mao immediately recognizes his voice and turns around. Lin Bei smiles warmly at him and teases him again, reminding him of the failed engagement. "You again, you bastard!" Xiao Mao shouts, clenching his fists. Lin responds by offering him to outbid him, since the countdown has already begun and the pill will soon be his. And Xiao Mao is about to raise the price, but Grandpa Dan stops him because he knows that such a pill costs a maximum of 1,000, which means it is unreasonable to continue bargaining. And if Xiao Mao does not contain his anger, he will ruin their great plans. So the guy shuts up and the pill still goes to Lin Bei. The guy exhales quietly, trying to pull himself together and control his anger. The next lot is announced and it is Forging Ore Void Force Stone. The starting price of the lot is 800 stones, and Xiao Mao immediately raises the price to 2,000. Lin Bei laughingly notes that no matter how much he offers, he will always give 50 stones more. The teacher again restrains the raging Xiao Mao, convincing him that a real man can bend and straighten, and the price is already exorbitant. The second lot also goes to the villain, and Li Zhen announces the third, a spiritual herb for alchemy called Purple Cloud Mushroom, with a starting price of 2,000 spiritual stones. Xiao Mao jumps up in his seat and immediately bids 4,000, confident that no one will want to outbid him. But Lin Bei smiles again and adds 100 stones to his price. Teacher Dan once again has to restrain his student from reckless actions. Lin Bei, meanwhile, continues to mock and laugh at his opponent, who has been driven to the brink. Dan tries to stop his student once again, but this time it is all in vain. "I'll take your life!" Xiao Mao screams in rage and charges. The friendly smile immediately disappeared from Li Zhen's face. Therefore, the guy does not have time to run to his hated enemy. A second later, he finds himself pinned to the floor by Li Zhen's heel, who has no intention of allowing any disturbances to occur at her auction. The first time she forgives the guy and only gives him a warning, but if something like this happens again, the girl promises to severely punish the offender. Under Lin Bei's influence, Xiao Mao gradually deviates from his destiny as the chosen one, and his luck decreases by 1,000 at once, while the villain gets 200 points of luck and 4,000 points of villainy, which makes him incredibly happy. Grandfather Dan notices that his student has become too impulsive, because before, even when provoked, he would instantly calm down and develop a new strategy. But this time, Xiao Mao had completely lost his usual cool and reasonable manner. The student answers all of Grandfather Dan's questions that he himself does not understand the reasons for his behavior, but that a voice is heard in the depths of his consciousness that convinces him not to hold back and immediately vent his anger. Teacher Dan decides that after they obtain this spiritual herb, he himself will try to deal with these anomalies in the disciple's body. Thanks to the villain's intervention, all the items that Xiao Mao wanted ended up in someone else's hands. But for some reason, the system still hasn't reported the successful completion of the task. Surely Xiao Mao's opportunity lies in the last lot? Li Zhen is just announcing the final lot of the auction for today, and this is an unnamed spiritual herb. Its effects are unknown, its purpose is unclear, and the only thing that can be said is that it comes from a mysterious and unpredictable place called the Dark Sea. The auction participants quietly talk among themselves about how this nameless spiritual herb is a legendary spiritual item that brings both opportunity and danger. Lin recalls that just before leaving, he stopped by the library and took out a note on the geography of Daping, where he could see what this Black Sea was like. This book says that on the eastern edge of the Juzhou continent, there is a battlefield with foreigners. At the western end, there is a vast expanse of sea dotted with islands. The Dark Sea is a mysterious water region that constantly moves in these waters, and every time it approaches Juzhou, it brings unheard of treasures to the continent. Some of these items can give a person great power, allowing him to become a great cultivator. Others deprive a person of his own eye, turning him into a puppet of these strange artifacts. Grandfather Dan, having looked at the grass more closely, is convinced that it is exactly what he saw on the frescoes in the ancient ruins. This treasure is called Golden Cocoon with Bloodgrass. The bloodgrass portion can be used to create an elixir that increases cultivation level, and the golden cocoon allows you to master the combat technique Void Cicada Wings. Whether this grass becomes an opportunity or a danger depends on everyone's luck, Li Zhen loudly declares. The original price of this treasure today is 100,000 spiritual stones. Before the girl can finish speaking, the auction participants start shouting out more and more bids. Xiao Mao, without ceremony, immediately offered 300,000 spiritual stones. Grandpa Dan commands him to get ready and get this root, so the guy immediately raises the bet to 1,000,000. Since bidding 1,000,000 on a herb with unknown properties is too wasteful, the other bidders are not going to outbid him. Lin is deeply thinking about how to take this herb from Xiao Mao, because he himself has less than 1,000,000 spiritual stones left. He doesn't know yet that today, this guy brought 2.5 million stones with him and intends to get the spiritual herb at any cost. Is there anyone willing to offer more? Asks a satisfied Li Zhen. Lin Bei comes up with a brilliant idea and asks the system to replace all his spiritual stones with Xiaomao stones. The system informs him that a full exchange will cost him a whopping 25 million villainy points, but this service can also be obtained on credit. However, if the owner wants to take these stones from the enemy at any cost, then she can offer a second option called Nimble Fingers, which is a special equipment for stealing a random amount of spiritual stones. Each use of this equipment will cost the villain 5,000 points, and he agrees without hesitation. Having paid the required amount, the villain begins to act. Xiaomao immediately gets the feeling that something is wrong. Take it. Lin mentally rejoices as he activates the equipment. He reaches forward and strikes, taking the stones away. Xiaomao screams in unexpected pain. The system congratulates the owner on his incredible luck. In one blow, he managed to get all of the enemy's spiritual stones at once. Lin Bei laughs nastily as he looks at his prey. Grandfather Dan is worried about his suddenly pale student, but the boy brushes it off, deciding that he simply ate something bad the day before. Li Zhen begins the countdown. Then Lin Bei raised the tablet and raised the bet to 1,010,000 spiritual stones. Xiaomao, confident that the villain is unlikely to have enough stones left, is going to raise the bet to 1.5 million. But Lin Bei suddenly suggests that he check the number of stones left before making such a big bet. The guy immediately looks into the storage room and is horrified to see it empty. There is no doubt who set this all up. However, no matter how hard one tries, it is impossible to prove this. Lin Bei winks at him cheekily, pleased with his cunning and luck. Li Zhen continues the countdown, and this time it will not be possible to beat the villain's bet. So the girl smiles and congratulates the winner on acquiring the nameless spiritual herb. The auction participants disperse, and Lin Bei also heads to the exit, where he is to be presented with the winning lot. Already on the street, an auction worker approaches him and solemnly hands him the spiritual herb. From around the corner, an enraged Xiaomao, whose remaining luck is already equal to 1,800 points, watches all this. Lin Bei notices the guy and turns to face him. He says with a chuckle that he feels very embarrassed that the grass that Xiaomao wanted so much ended up with him. This time you're left with nothing at all, what a pity. The villain laughs. Xiaomao blushes with anger as he listens to the bullying. Lin advises him to take more money next time so as not to become a laughingstock again. The villain leaves, and Grandpa Dan anxiously picks up the student, whose luck has decreased by another 450 points. Lin reaches the exit where Bai Qing is already waiting for him. She already realized that her new acquaintance clearly hated Xiaomao very much. Lin remembers that she doesn't yet know what this guy did, so he decides to enlighten the girl and begins his long story. After learning about all of Xiaomao's atrocities, Bai Qing becomes furious. A pleased Lin gains another 400 villainy points for successfully invoking the aversion of the chosen one of heaven. It was already dark outside, so they decided to go home. Returning to the ship, Lin learns some unpleasant news. "Gu Ye has left!" he shouts throughout the room. The teacher explains that the girl was taken away by her father, and that is why Gu Yue was brought here. In addition, the father left a stone with a note for Lin Bei. As soon as he picks up the stone, a menacing voice from Gu Yue's father immediately comes from there, demanding that Lin never approach his daughter again. The badly beaten man claims that the boy is so weak that he won't even be able to open the gates of their Gu family. Bai Yun mutters to himself that he will beat him even harder the next time they meet. Lin Bei froze in place, the many moments he had lived together with Gu Yue flashing through his mind. He looks down at the stone still clutched in his hand, disappointed. The teacher asks him not to take evil words so seriously, because for his generation, Lin is very strong, and he hands him the potion in an unusual box. She stole this item from Gu Yue's father. It was a rank 5 mysterious purple pill. It expands the Dantian. With its help, Lin will be able to satisfy the conditions for breaking through to the golden core level of the Blue Lotus sword technique. The guy smiles happily, thanking his mentor with all his heart. He immediately takes it upon himself to improve himself, locking himself in his room. Lin Bei decides that the threats of the Gu family's father are not worth paying attention to. With his system, the cultivation problem is completely solvable. Therefore, he would first wait for his strength to increase, and then smash the Gu family's gate to smithereens and take Yue away. The more immediate threat now is Xiaomao. Lin decides to first deal with the auction treasures and exchange those that are of no use to him. He then asks the system what the effect of the golden cocoon with bloodgrass is, and he learns that this treasure can be used to practice the void cicada wings technique. Bloodgrass can also be used to create the Golden Infant 4 Transformations pill, which is intended for Golden Core level cultivators. One pill allows one to perfectly ascend one stage within the Golden Core level, and 4 pills allow one to immediately reach the very peak. The system suggests that the owner can hand over the cocoon and spend 50,000 villain points to exchange the secret technique Void Cicada Wings and 4 Golden Baby 4 transformation pills. Linbei agrees and also asks to exchange the Breakthrough pill for the Gold Core level. Now he is ready to send Xiao Mao into retirement. Having completed all the necessary exchanges, the guy begins the process of self-improvement. Gradually, its core begins to crack and eventually sheds its shell. Linbei successfully broke through the barrier. 5 days later, the long-awaited meeting of the 3 sects finally begins. All cultivators are eagerly awaiting the start of this event. Bai Yun playfully teases the other elders whose disciples have not yet arrived. In response, they only laugh, saying that there is still enough time and each of their students will have time to get there. Finally, the arrival of all those missing is announced. Appearing as if from thin air, Xiao Mao lands on the ground. Another guy appears behind him, and the system suggests that he is also chosen by heaven. Lin just sighs with displeasure at this, no longer surprised by anything. The new chosen one is named Tan Shan, and he is reincarnated from another world. Meanwhile, the manager announces the beginning of the meeting, and the first test is a competition in alchemy. The materials are provided by the organizers. Each participant has 2 attempts to create the specified 4th rank pill, and after 2 hours, the winner will be the one whose pill is of the highest quality. And this cultivator will receive a bottle of mystical golden breakthrough pills containing powerful spiritual energy. Xiao Mao thinks that he simply has to get this reward after losing that spiritual herb. The teacher again points out to him the need to remain calm. After 5 days of careful examination, he still found no abnormalities in the student's body. At this time, Lin thinks that another chosen one from heaven promises him a new headache. But now the villain's main task is to completely take away Xiao Mao's luck, and then completely eliminate him. And he intends to complete this task successfully. Meanwhile, the alchemical competition had already begun. Li Wuzi of the Qilian sect is a 4th-level alchemist, so this task is not particularly difficult for him. Xiao Mao also has a lot of knowledge in this area and does not intend to give up. And Lin Bei is only a 3rd-tier alchemist, and he is not sure if he can create a 4th-tier pill, but the system suggests that he can exchange a 4th-tier alchemy technique. However, the guy decides that if he only exchanges a level 4 technique, the audience will think that he has run out of points, so he wants a level 5 technique right away. To achieve this, he has to spend a whopping 20,000 villainy points. Now his account is at 0 and he needs to continue earning points to reunite with Gu Yue. That's why the guy decides to fleece his opponents blind at these competitions. Liwuzi is almost finished. He showed a great result, and therefore he is confident that victory is almost in his pocket. The audience can see that the very same pill punishment that can only be seen when creating pills of the 5th rank and above has appeared. His sect elder Yanling also understands what this means, and remarks with a chuckle that it looks like the Qilian sect is winning this time. The other elders ask her not to rush to conclusions. And rightly so, because another lightning bolt appears. It is red in color and is located an order of magnitude higher than the green lightning of Liwuzi. Grandpa Dan encourages his student, pleased with his results. The guy directs his lightning at Liwuzi's furnace and its owner is thrown aside by the explosion. But Lin Bei doesn't let him fall, catching him in midair in time. Liwuzi frustratedly shouts his thanks to him for his help. You should take care of yourself, but you help others. Xiao Mao chuckles, and echoing his words, he directs lightning towards Lin Bei's cauldron. Liwuzi frowned tensely, worried about the guy who helped him. The spectators in the arena are no less tense, awaiting the outcome. Teacher Bi Yun screams in fear, worried about her student. Everything around is covered in smoke from the explosion. But gradually, albeit slowly, it begins to dissipate. Xiao Mao is confident that this is a truly complete and unconditional victory. However, the teacher does not share his joy and asks the boy to pull himself together, because now he is too emotionally excited and therefore vulnerable. However, Xiao Mao does not listen to him, unconditionally confident in his victory. But a voice coming straight from the clouds of smoke brings him back to earth. So what are you so proud of? Lin Bei asks, finally coming into full view. It turned out that he had caused a punishment stronger than the enemy's black pill, and therefore remained unharmed. Now the villain decides it's his turn to shock his opponent. Xiao Mao, still not having come to his senses, watches him in amazement. But despite this, he doesn't have time to react when lightning flies straight at him. There is an explosion, and again, everything around is covered in clouds of dark, dense smoke. And the boy would have actually met his end if Teacher Dan hadn't protected him. But it affected his ability to be in this world. He had spent too much energy protecting the disciple from the heavenly lightning, and now he needed to sleep for a while. So now his student will be forced to act independently. Xiao Mao asks the disappearing mentor to be calm, because he will do everything to live up to his expectations. Lo Wuzi shouts at the guy that he is a complete scoundrel and that he got what he deserved. But Tan Shan suddenly intervenes, believing that such a trifle that Xiao Mao committed cannot be called meanness. Lo Wuzi is very surprised that a disciple from his own sect is siding with their enemy, to which he replies that he is defending the truth, not his own. Yanling, your sect's disciples are quite colorful. One of the elders laughs at the teacher. The woman smiles politely, thinking to herself that if she could, she would have expelled this student from the sect long ago. But he has too many patrons who get in her way. Meanwhile, Lin's boiler announces that it has finished its work. The guy takes out a pill and shows it to everyone, tossing it in the air with his outstretched hand. Xiao Mei looks at him with an unreadable expression. Lin continues to laugh at the fact that the guy's oven exploded. The cultivator tries his best to contain his anger, trying not to lose his temper. The guys freeze opposite each other, and it seems like they are about to fight. And indeed, Xiao Mao begins to raise his hand up, as if preparing to attack. Lin Bei stands tensely, waiting for further developments. But his opponent merely raises his hand, admitting defeat. He says that this time the victory is Lin Bei's, but sooner or later they will meet again, and then he will take revenge. The villain notes that this guy's luck level is getting closer to the critical point for elimination, but it is becoming increasingly difficult to reduce it. He approaches Qing Ting, who is participating in the next stage, and asks him to be careful with Tan Shan, to which the guy smiles and asks him not to worry. Now I'll show you my class, he says confidently and goes off to the arena. Lin Bei just sighed meaningfully. And not in vain, because Qing Ting is eliminated amazingly quickly. Tan Shan, who doesn't have a single scratch on him, approaches Lin. He looks down on him with superiority. With a malicious sneer, the boy says that the disciples of the Qingyun sect are really weak, so he hopes to meet Lin in the third trial of duels, because that way there will be more time before defeat. Teacher Bi Yun once again tells the sect elder that her disciples are truly unique. In response to this, the woman laughs a little tensely. Bai Yun asks Elder Xuanyi if the sect leadership has really decided to give that very thing as a reward, to which the man replies that this treasure has been in their hands for over 1,000 years, but they have never been able to unravel its secret. Yanling is sure that in reality they still feel sorry to part with such a thing. Otherwise, why did they decide to give it out now, and not at a larger competition that will take place in a few months? The list of participants for the third test will be posted very soon. Suddenly, someone puts a hand on Lin's shoulder, who was just carefully studying the list. He turns around and sees the girl he already knows, but this time without disguise. The girl says that her real name is Bai Nan. She wants to tell her new friend the secret that those who make it into the top 3 at this meeting will receive a mysterious reward. The system immediately issues a task to win the championship in the tests. Lin Bei lets out a frustrated sigh. Then, Lei Wuzi appears behind him, happily offering to meet in the final and engage in a fierce fight. But of course, the guy is eliminated in the first round. 2 pairs advance to the semi-finals, Xiao Mao with Bai Qing and Lin Bei with Tan Shan. Each of them intends to fight with all their might for victory. Xuanyin is very happy that there are 2 disciples from his sect participating in the semi-finals. Bai Yun notes that the man's face immediately shows how he does not want to give his treasure into the hands of others. Yanling is unhappy that her students have a chance to obtain a great inheritance, but it is intercepted by a stubborn and wayward student whom she is powerless to stop. Xuanyi asks with a smile what kind of student this is, and the woman replies that it is Tan Shan, behind whom stand 4 elders of the Kilian sect. She still cannot understand how this student deserved such favor from them. The first round begins, but Tan Shan is nowhere to be seen. Lin is confident that he will never appear on the field. Thanks to his efforts, the enemy is now running all over the forest looking for his rabbit Xiaowu. Finally, hearing a loud cry, the boy turns around and finds his little animal. He hangs right from one of the tree branches, tied up and helpless. With lightning speed, Tan Shan launches the dagger and cuts the rope. He immediately picks up the fallen rabbit and checks if everything is okay with it. Suddenly, he notices that the bunny is glowing, which can only mean one thing. He is about to take on his human form. But in his current outfit, that's clearly not the best idea. However, nothing can be done about this, and the rabbit takes on human form. The girl who appeared has a cute white cap on her head. She blushes embarrassedly and asks not to look at her. The former rabbit's body is still tied with strong ropes, and the soft pink skirt suit on his pumped-up body looks rather unusual. Tan Shan chokes on air as he looks at the rabbit's new incarnation. Lin Bei was chuckling to himself at this time because he was the one who gave this creature the pill to transform into a muscular form. Meanwhile, the Master of Ceremonies raises the red flag to declare Lin Bei the winner due to the absence of an opponent. The villain wins this round. Immediately after, Tan Shan lands next to his opponent like lightning. He growls angrily, driven to rage by such a cruel act. Lin Bei laughs, asking if Tan Shan liked his surprise. In response, the guy curses in disappointment and leaves the arena. The system notifies that its owner has successfully separated the lovers and received 10,000 points for this. According to the original fate, Xiao Wu was an incredibly important spiritual beast in this guy's fate, and by losing her, he will lose many opportunities. If the relationship between these two were to be completely destroyed, Tan Shan would lose even more luck points. Now Lin Bei understands why this guy lost 2,000 points at once. It's time for the next semi-final match. Xiao Mao has a rather strange feeling, because when he looks at his opponent, for some reason he sees Gu Yue in her. An inexplicable excitement arose in his heart, as if an inner voice was telling him that this girl should belong to him and stand next to him, just as Gu Yue once stood next to him in the Xiao estate. After that engagement breakup incident, the image of this girl disappeared from his life, and now every quiet night Xiao Mao yearns for her. Right now, Gu Yue is somewhere far away, moving forward on his father's flying ship. Grandpa Shu warns her that very soon their ship will fly through icy, snowy boundaries. The girl looks out the window sadly, longing for Lin Bei. At this time, the villain actively encourages Bai Qing, who entered the arena against Xiao Mao. "Give this scoundrel a proper lesson," he shouts. Xiao Mao immediately shouts back at Bai Qing not to believe a word this guy says, because they are sworn enemies. Moreover, he believes that the girl should leave Lin Bei and go to him, because if they unite, she will definitely reach new heights of cultivation. Lin Bei thinks that Xiao Mao is talking about the girl as if she were some kind of thing that belongs to him, but in reality, her path and future should be in her own hands. And Bai Qing completely agrees with him. Since she is so ungrateful, Xiao Mao decides to teach her a lesson and rushes into attack. He delivers a powerful blow with his sword, but the girl successfully parries it. Bai Qing attacks back, but this also doesn't produce much result. The opponent's swords cross and they freeze, looking into each other's eyes with determination. Where the blades of their swords touch, sparkling sparks appear. Xiao Mao makes an effort and throws the opponent aside. The girl flies up from the force of the blow, but at the last moment she stays on her feet and does not fall completely. Xiao Mao was saving his next move for Lin, but he had no desire to deal with this girl anymore. Therefore, obeying his power, bright red patterns bloom on the guy's forehead. A huge beast made of fire itself appears behind Xiao Mao. The audience begins to whisper in surprise when they realize that this is the Golden Core phenomenon. When moving from the foundation level to the Golden Core level, a trace of Tao remains on the core itself, containing a technique called the Golden Core ability. But some geniuses have several such traces left on their Golden Core, and such techniques with multiple traces are called Golden Core phenomena. They symbolize talent and power and are an indicator of the cultivator's strength. While these phenomena are incredibly powerful and can kill enemies of a higher level, they place strict demands on the user's qi. For example, if Xiao Mao uses his phenomenon at full power, then in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, he will completely exhaust his qi, and then he won't be able to fight any further. Xiao Mao, meanwhile, shouts that since Bai Qing refused to walk next to him and preferred Lin Bei, now he will show her all his rage and contempt. With these words, he raises the sword high above his head and sharply lowers it, directing the blow. A huge fire beast rushes forward and rushes towards Bai Qing. Just one blow from a powerful paw is enough to make the girl cough up her own blood. Losing her balance, she falls down rapidly. Lin Bei screams her name in horror as he watches helplessly as the girl falls. The elders do not understand how Xiao Mao could deal such a terrible blow to his comrade from his own sect. The guy replies that he only recently mastered this phenomenon and cannot yet fully control it. The elder frowns with displeasure, but accepts such explanations. The final decision will be made by the Danyuan sect's disciplinary team, and for now, the competition will continue. Now Xiao Mao is confident that he can repay the hated Lin Bei for all the past grievances. In response, the villain says that he himself intends to pay for the serious injury to Bai Qing. To finally kill your opponent without any surprises, you need to reduce his luck below 500 points and completely destroy his halo of being chosen by heaven. According to the original trajectory of fate, this guy should show off his skills at the meeting of the three sects, win first place in the competition, and receive generous rewards. But if the villain prevents him from getting first place, then his luck will definitely decrease. At the moment, Xiao Mao's luck is 1,800 points, and his status as the chosen one of heaven is gradually being destroyed. The final competition of the three sects begins. Xiao Mao rushes into the attack with great joy on his face. Their fists clash, and curses and other sounds of combat echo throughout the arena. Lin Bei suddenly retracts his fist and kicks, and Xiao Mao tries to block it by putting his hand out. The guy screams in pain and flies away to a safe distance. He lands hard, his knee hitting the hard arena floor. Lin says with a chuckle that he can control his flying sword not only with his hands but also with his feet. Roaring in pain, Xiao Mao suddenly yanks the sword out of his hand. Such dirty tricks infuriate him. Spectators note that it is incredibly difficult to control the flying sword with just his feet, but nevertheless, Lin Bei's strength is not enough to defeat his opponent. However, within the same level, fighters with the phenomenon have an overwhelming advantage. Xiao Mao is going to crush all the villain's tricks with thunder and lightning. But Lin Bei is not so simple either. He also has the phenomenon of swaying lotus reflecting starlight. The spectators scream in amazement, not expecting such a turn of events. Meanwhile, Xiao Mao and Lin Bei clash again. The teacher thinks that they both have incredibly powerful reserves of spiritual energy. Now it is simply impossible to predict the outcome of the battle. During a battle, the spiritual energy directed by both opponents is approximately equal. This fight promises to be long and colorful. After some time, Lin notices something strange. With each collision, part of his spiritual energy quietly disappears. Xiao Mao laughs contentedly, happy that his opponent finally noticed. This is his superpower phenomenon achieved through Tao Te water. Lin Bei is tensely defending himself. This phenomenon can silently absorb the spiritual energy of an opponent who comes into contact with it. Moreover, it converts the received energy into energy for its owner, forming a small red ball. Laughing loudly, Xiao Mao absorbs the very same ball, thereby increasing his strength. Lin Bei, you will die today. He laughs madly. The villain watches every move tensely, trying to think of something that will help him escape. But nothing comes to his mind and Lin misses another blow. He falls to the floor, his back hitting the hard surface painfully, and again Xiao Mao appears behind him. The guy laughs happily, a half-mad smile playing across his face. He rises into the air to attack from above. Lin Bei is sent flying to the side again by his blow. Having landed, he immediately raises his head and looks for the enemy. And immediately, he sees the tip of someone else's sword pointed at his face. Earlier, you said that you were going to settle some scores with me? Xiao Mao laughs mockingly. The elders are confident that if Lin Bei no longer has any trump cards, he will definitely lose. However, Teacher Bi Yun is convinced otherwise. She believes that her student probably has a backup plan. At this time, Xiao Mao was talking about how they were both at the Golden Core stage, but he had made a breakthrough much earlier, which meant his level was higher. Moreover, his absorption phenomenon gradually took away Lin Bei's spiritual energy. Since you have decided to become my enemy, only defeat awaits you. Xiao Mao sums it up. But if Lin bowed to him 3 times, hitting his forehead on the ground, and swore to serve, then perhaps he would agree to spare him. In response to this, the villain only laughs. This makes Xiao Mao extremely confused. Unexpectedly for everyone, Lin Bei's body was enveloped in a golden glow. Xiao Mao shouts at him that it is useless to resist. But this cry is cut off halfway. Lin Bei, as if nothing had happened, attacked again, and this time his attacks had improved significantly. He smiles contentedly as he swings his flying sword with ease. One of the swords falls to the stone floor of the arena, effortlessly breaking through it and entering halfway inside. Xiao Mao understands what is going on. Blood drips down onto the floor in viscous drops, staining it. His opponent's current level is the peak of the Golden Core stage. To the enemy's surprise, Lin Bei replies that he should say thank you for the golden cocoon of bloodgrass that he so kindly gave up. Knowing the nature of the treasure, he processed the bloodgrass into a pill and took it. Moreover, he had completely mastered the divine technique hidden in the golden cocoon. Considering Xiao Mao's previous kindness, Lin Bei came up with a great way to deal with this. He holds a smoke bomb in his hand and activates the artifact, causing the entire arena to become hidden from the view of the spectators. For the next few minutes, only screams and the sounds of blows can be heard from behind the smoke screen. Done, Lin Bei says as he soars into the air. The smoke clears and a completely naked Xiao Mao appears before the viewers. The crowd immediately erupts in delighted cries at such a spectacle. The system notifies that the owner has successfully humiliated the opponent and prevented him from winning first place in the tournament. And now, Xiao Mao's remaining luck is 600 points. The villain thinks that this guy is a real cockroach because, even after such humiliation, he has not reached the threshold. Since his opponent is unconscious, the announcer declares victory for Lin Bei. Third place goes to Bai Qing, who is rewarded with many useful treasures. In second place is Xiao Mao, who lost consciousness. And Lin Bei, who won first place, receives the most necessary and important treasures. In addition, each of the three winners also receives something unusual. And this is the token for entering the legendary mysterious lands, the secret kingdom of Qingzhou, where traces of immortals were seen. Night falls, and loud groans and even curses are heard from Bai Qing's house. If you look inside, you can see the owner writhing, either from pain or pleasure, and also an extremely dissatisfied Lin Bei. "Stop reacting like that, I'm just giving you a massage." Eventually, he can't take it anymore. The girl replies that she didn't expect him to have such excellent medical skills. Lin finishes the massage and remembers that he never gave the girl her token. "A token for entering the secret realm?" Bai Qing clarifies, squeezing it in his palm. Lin answers in the affirmative and finally leaves the girl's room. He completed the assignment and can now be free. His calm walk home is interrupted by suspicious sounds behind him. Suddenly, two people in cloaks land right in front of the guy. "Who are you?" Lin Bei instantly tenses up. Instead of answering, the unknown people pull off their masks. Lin realizes that they are his sisters Nalin Qingyun and Dugu Yu, and they both clearly heard Bai Qing's moans coming from that room. Lin Bei tries to explain to them how things really were, but no one is going to listen to him. "Well done, you are a good boy," Nalin Qingyun says, sarcastically, clenching her fists in anticipation. Dugu Yu turns Aya slightly to the side so as not to show such a bloody sight. Meanwhile, two people in dark cloaks also appear at Xiao Mao's bedside. They are watching a sleeping guy who appeared on their immortal artifact, the Heavenly Observation Mirror, 6 months ago. And now he is the target of their mission. One of the cultivators explains that Xiao Mao is not only their target, but also his little brother. "Xu Li, weren't you Grandpa Dan's only disciple?" the second guy asks in surprise. To which he receives the answer that Dan Chen took Xiao Mao as a disciple after his escape from the underground prison. "Okay, enough chatter, let's get started." Xu Li is in command, and he directs the flow of his energy onto the body of the sleeping and unsuspecting Xiao Mao. The second cultivator follows suit. In his dream, Xiao Mao is transported to a brightly iridescent, unusual space. He looks around the area of the place he sees for the first time in surprise. "Where am I?" the guy whispers quietly. And he hears his own voice behind him. He turns around abruptly and cannot believe what is happening. "I am you, and you are me." His own copy answers him. He claims to know what Xiao Mao desires and secretly fears. "And what am I afraid of?" the guy asks his copy. Instead of answering, the creature begins to show him terrifyingly realistic pictures. Each of them features Lin Bei, who is gradually destroying his life in one way or another. Time after time, he takes away everything that is dear to Xiao Mao, eventually driving him to the grave. And even if all this is just an illusion, but if he remains as weak and pathetic as he is now, everything will change. These illusions will become an inevitable reality. The guy lowers his head down in dejection, because he is only an outer disciple of the Danyuan sect, and his mentor is currently in a deep sleep. To this, the copy replies that there is one way to quickly level up, and this is to reverse the water of Taote. Xiao Mao's double continues to push him to do something strange, while the real world is still in the dark night. The cloaked cultivators at his bedside are pleased with the work they have done. Now all they can do is wait for Xiao Mao to step onto the demonic path. They are in no hurry and decide to leave the Taote water with this disciple. When he finally turns down the path of becoming a demon, they will return and easily take her away. After some time, one of the disciples of their sect approaches Xiao Mao's house, having noticed the door slightly open. Knocking softly, the guy goes inside. There he sees Xiao Mao already awake. Hearing the voice, he raises his head and stares at the boy with a strange look. A second later, he has him by the neck and lifts him into the air. Divide the water of Taote into 2 streams. Let one flow forward along the meridians and the other backward. And when the 2 streams intertwine, it will be possible to absorb the spiritual power and souls of other people. He mutters slowly under his breath. Even the memories of these people can be assimilated and made your own. Gradually, life leaves the body of the disciple who came here at such an inopportune time, and Xiao Mao absorbs all the knowledge of the cultivator he killed. He is extremely angry at his teacher, who hid the true power of water from him, causing him to endure humiliation. Surely this Dan Chen himself also sucked out his spiritual power. Xiao Mao reaches for the object that contains his mentor's soul. Since this man betrayed him and disappointed him, his soul and memories now belong to him. This is your deserved punishment, the guy growls, starting to draw power from the object. What are you doing? The spirit of the teacher appears and shouts at him. Xiao Mao replies with a grin that he is just devouring it. Meanwhile, Nalan and Dugu Yu had already come to see their mentor. Bai Yun had known from the beginning that these two would follow her, so their appearance did not surprise her at all. They arrived just in time because the teacher had an announcement for them. She tells the surprised students that they do not need to return to the cult with her. Tears immediately appear in Nalan's eyes at the thought of her mentor abandoning them. Did something happen to our mountain? Asks the more cool-headed Dugu Yu. Lin Bei, who had been lying at their feet all this time tied up with bandages, asked the teacher to speak more clearly, for which he immediately receives several kicks from his sisters. The teacher believes that these students are too naive and simple-minded, which is not surprising because they have lived in a sect since birth and know almost nothing about the world around them. So she decides to send them all to the secret kingdom of Qingzhou, and until they pass all the tests, she will not let them back into the sect. Nalan and Dugu Yu clutch their heads in panic, not knowing what to do now since they only brought a small amount of spiritual stones with them. Lin Bei smiles slyly at all these worries. Before the teacher threw them out, he managed to steal the spatial pouch from her. But before the guy can finish speaking, the bag flies out of his hands and falls to the ground with a crash. Surprised, Lin Bei comes closer to him to see what's going on, and he realizes that teacher Dan, who had always accompanied Xiao Mao, was in the bag all this time. Surprised, he asks the spirit how he came to such a miserable state, to which Grandpa Dan just wearily waves his hand. When Xiao Mao woke him up, the master immediately realized that for some unknown reason, his disciple was using the reverse flow of Taodi water, and if things continue like this, his soul will soon dissipate. Therefore, the spirit has no other choice. He decides to take a risk and use his last remaining strength. A blow to consciousness, the mentor shouts, regretfully attacking his own student. Thus, he got a chance to escape and was able to leave the house. Shi Li and the second cultivator notice this escape, but do not give chase. Now that Tao Te water is not with him, this old man is of no use to them. Moreover, they had already instilled in Xiao Mao the idea of robbing the Dan Yuan sect's vault, and now all that was left for them to do was follow him into the treasury and take the Blue Lotus Jade Key.